open today's meeting of the Architectural Board of Review for January 12, 2009, starting with the first item, public comment. Any member of the public may address the board on an item not on the agenda. Seeing no one, I will close that portion and go to B, approval of the minutes of the ABR meeting of January 6, 2009. Can I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
First and second. Okay. Anything before item 1? Keith?
Mr. Chair, on the action, I believe I abstained since it was final approval on a project that I had not seen before.
Which one was that?
Item 1.
We're on item 1. Okay. So that would be on item 1. That's 300 West Cabrillo Boulevard. It would be so that would be 6-2 and 1 abstention.
Wait. You're looking at...
I've abstained because I hadn't seen that project.
Okay, so that would be a 5-2-2. 2 abstentions.
Item 1, 0 to 300 West Cabrillo.
Yes.
So instead of 801.
Or 7-2.
Okay.
Instead of 7-2, it would be 5-2-2. So it looks like it's...
We're saying likely abstain, so, and adding 2 more, so it'd be 50603.
Yes, I agree.
603. Oh, down here.
Correct.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. 603. Okay. Any other comment on number 1? Number 2?
Number 2, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Carol.
In the motion under the landscaping section, number 1, that line I don't think was what was said. I think what was said was a landscape plan shall be professionally prepared, period. Review plants that Caltrans is using in adjacent areas. And number 2, instead of that whole first section saying study any landscape opportunities to be incorporated into the project, especially at nodes, I think what was said was provide landscaping at significant nodes, etc. As it's, then the rest is correct.
Sounds good.
Mr. Chair, if you don't mind me interjecting, it actually did say study because Don was the person who made it, and it was the way it was written. Unfortunately, it was suggested to study and all that kind of stuff, even though we wish it was a little bit more heavy-handed on what we want them to do. The way it was phrased was to have them study opportunities, not to provide landscaping in those areas. Sorry about that.
So let's just...
She can review the tape to confirm that too, but that was my recollection too, unfortunately.
Okay. Let's just leave out the word any. So it would just say study landscaping opportunities. And leave out the word any. Anything else? Item 3.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Carol.
Under landscaping, number 2, and I was the maker of the motion, so my memory is pretty clear. Number 2 should say, provide location and species of, quote, inappropriate, unquote, trees to be removed.
Okay.
That was number 2.
But number 2, we also have a return with a landscape tree and plant species pictorial.
No, I was the maker of the motion. That didn't get in the motion. That wasn't what was said.
That was an interjection that the chair made before the motion was made.
Yeah.
He asked me to insert that one before the motion.
Correct. We started with these items that at least I thought was a consensus that we had to have. And
Well,
then
okay.
whatever else was added became part of the motion.
Well, let me just say two things. One is the maker of the motion should make the motion and not have one individual interject an earlier thought. So we have to be good about the government of our board.
I quite understand.
The second thing is there was a discussion at that time when you had recorded that the applicant is not willing to do that because that's a tremendous amount of work that really isn't demonstrating what we really need to see. And thirdly, the only plants, the trees that we're really concerned of, there were three categories. One was disease, we could give them that. The other was the tree removals in the way of the new golf course construction, give them that. But there was that third area of tree removal that he just called inappropriate species or trees. That's the only category that I'm interested in seeing more information about. And I said that word in the motion, inappropriate trees, and that didn't get into the motion.
How about we have staff go back and listen to the tape in that portion of it and modify it as necessary?
Yeah. And I think if in the future, it happens something like this, if you disagree with what we had stated first, then you could say that you disagree with it. Because at the same time, when we're trying to craft things up here, sometimes there's a lot of conversation going down there, and it's just together, the board isn't working together. And things are happening here and things are happening there separately, and it makes this confusion, and I'd prefer not for this to happen again.
Right. We just have to make sure the maker of the motion is the one that's making the motion.
I think that probably what happens, Carol, if you don't mind me saying so, is that a lot of times you're crafting the landscape portion of the motion. And the motion in this particular case had already been started to be crafted by at least that one item that Chris brought up. And it does happen a lot where we refer to you to craft the landscape part of the motion. But we're all on the same track, that we have to make sure that we try as hard as we can to have one person make the motion. I agree.
Okay, anything else on item 3?
I have just one minor thing, that it just reads a little funny on the architecture number 3, where it says, after the colon, it says it's on.
Is it on meeting? Or is it mute button?
It says it's on, Chris,
Yeah.
but there's no light.
You push all the way over.
Oh, now I have a light. Okay. On number 3 of the motion, after the colon, it says, proposed to be a 6-foot-high black chain link fence. Maybe it should say a 6-foot-high black chain link fence is proposed. That's just a minor thing.
Number 3 of the architectural. Anything more on 3? No? Item 4? Item 5?
I just had one item, Mr.
Yes.
Chair, on number 2, where it says one board member thought the site plan aesthetically acceptable. I think it was probably more than one board member.
I thought so myself.
So I think it's several.
I'm not sure that
number
we
2.
need to have it at all.
Those 2 board members are proposed.
Shows it just remove 4 and then
4, and then number 1 is...
several board members.
Several.
Actually, it was most.
okay.
All right.
Okay, most.
But I think that number 1 is correct. I think
Yeah.
there were
One's
2
correct.
board members expressed preference for.
Yes.
Okay. So number 2 will be changed to most board members. Yeah. Okay. Item 6.
Mr. Chair, under number 5,
Oh,
for
Chris.
the landscaping portion,
Okay.
we'd like to change comment number 1. It says return with a more detailed landscape plan to incorporate more open space. Let's just remove to incorporate more open space.
Okay.
So it's just return with a more detailed landscape plan.
Okay.
And then I think number 4 can be just removed altogether, because that will be part of number 1.
Okay. Item 6. Item 7. Okay, that concludes the minutes. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the minutes, say aye. Aye. Motion carries. No.
You know, we don't have agendas.
Are they coming?
Oh, thank you.
Consent agenda for today, Michelle.
Today's consent agenda for Monday, January 12th. Item A, 2108 Los Canoas Road, approved as noted of review after final. Item B, 1800 to 2300 Cliff, Lighthouse and Megs, etc. Final approval as submitted. Item C, 1115 Quinientos Street, final approval as noted. Items were reviewed by Clay Arell and Carol Gross.
Great. Second by? Sorry.
Okay.
Second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carries. Okay. Announcements. Requests for applicants for continuances and withdrawals.
I have a couple announcements.
Michelle?
One, I just wanted to bring to the board's attention that our next meeting on the 26th, long-range planning staff is going to give a hour-and-a-half presentation on the alternative building height charter amendment. The purpose is to give input to council on design and land use issues associated with reducing the building heights from 60 to 45 feet in certain commercial zones. So they are going to notice that for the public, and there will be a staff report that the staffing planners will submit to you. And also on today's agenda item number 3, 700 block of East Alamar, that item has been postponed. It will not be heard today.
Okay.
The applicants have tentatively requested a hearing to postpone that hearing until March 9th. That is a tentative hearing date. The purpose of the applicants removing this item from today's agenda is so that they may meet with neighborhood concerned citizens regarding this project, and they're going to try and explain the project to the neighbors before they come back to ABR. So, again, the March 9th is a tentative hearing date, but the applicants themselves will notice the neighbors and hold a neighborhood community meeting for that project.
Thanks. Thanks, Michelle. And I believe, Keith, you're stepping down on one of the items, item 2, is that it? Okay. All right. Subcommittee reports? Oh, sorry. Subcommittee reports? Possible ordinance violations?
Yeah, I have a question. The
Jim?
McDonald's, did we ever get the McDonald's on Cliff resolved because the air conditioning and air heating unit is still visible from the rooftop? Just thought I'd throw that in.
Do you believe that was an item that you looked at? on consent?
Yes. As the latest that I know that there is an enforcement issue that's been filed on that, and they have to comply. I don't know what the time arrangement is, but I know that that's already been enacted by the city.
Because I know they were trying to do something without doing something else to it. I just didn't know if they were done, but it's still visible. That's mine.
I believe they did come back, and it was reviewed at consent and approved. I don't know where their status is as far as actually building what was approved, but it should be resolved to make it not visible.
All right. Thank you.
Great. Okay. So that concludes, and we're ready to take item 1, Haley de la Vena Street Bridge. Familiar faces. How are you doing?
I'm David Black, landscape architect, and this is Scott Onachek with Bengal Engineering. what you have are half-size sets, which are
Okay.
the project's at essentially 100%. So what you have there is pretty much.
Are you going to talk on this
Well,
one?
yeah, I think it'd be easier to talk through it from this, but.
Okay. You want me to go ahead and read through
The comments, yes,
the
please.
comments? Okay, so the last time was 17th of December, 2007. No, 1st of December, 2009. Yeah, that's preliminary approval expired. Received final approval on the 17th of December. This is order here. 1st, 17th, 17th. Okay, you're requesting preliminary now, and I note here that preliminary approval expired on the 17th, and you're requesting preliminary and final again. Is that it?
Yes.
Okay.
And this is Jim Colton with Public Works as well.
Okay. The concrete color is to match the Chapala Street color and pattern. 1. 2. The concrete and deck are to be contrasting colors. 3. The board likes the proposed deck railing. 4. The board likes the proposed 4x4 tiles at each intersection. 5. There's concern with the proposed crosswalk design and the board looks for another solution. 6. Incorporate landscaping, particularly trees, at the northwest corner at Delavina, at the residual small triangular property adjacent to the parking lot. 7. The board likes the transition wall of poured-in-place faux Santa Barbara sandstone with cap as shown. 8. The board likes diagonal concrete edge banding, which is a metaphor for the creek below the intersection. And lastly, 9. The landscaping is appropriate as proposed. The use of sycamores in the proposed location is acceptable and appreciated. Okay, David.
Okay, thanks very much.
If you-
Only because it's been a little bit since we were here last. I just brought this sort of oblique aerial to kind of give you an overview of where we're talking about. This is De La Vina and Haley Crossing. This is the downstream or south side of Mission Creek. Upstream side is Brownie's Market on the corner. And so what's being proposed is...
This is downstream and this is upstream, right?
No, this is downstream here. Oh, wait, where are we? Oh, sorry, downstream here. I'm upside down. Downstream here. This is Brownie's Market here.
Okay.
And so what's being proposed is a construction of the entire bridge and deck, essentially the intersection of Haley de la Vina.
Okay.
Okay. Which is what we've shown you. So I will just kind of go over some of the detail elements, much of which we've shown you in the past. Again, this is the where am I? Yeah, where's downstream? Here we are. This is the downstream side. So the entire intersection is being reconstructed, as I indicated. This will be the downstream bridge railing and the upstream bridge railing. The railing design itself has already been approved, and just for the sake of review, this is the design that's incorporated in the final plans. And this was already signed off, and I should point out that this will be all done in plain gray concrete, which is in contrast to what's being proposed on the deck of the sidewalk, which is a Mesa buff color, which matches the Chapala Street design guidelines, which is what we'd agreed to.
Okay. Can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
This is a relief or...
Yeah, there it
This is a
is.
shadow.
Second
These are
relief.
shadow. This is a shadow relief of various steps.
Okay.
Yeah, and this particular configuration of the date, or what ends up being constructed, reflects the historic date that's on there now, as I remember.
Yes, in terms of font.
Yeah, font size and size. So
Okay, so this looks to be, this is flush right through here, which is this and this,
Yes.
this and this, and then this looks to be a one recess, and this looks to be a double. Where's the second?
Okay. So as we start from the bridge deck here, this first band here is flush with the bridge rail. This band here is the first. This band here is, I guess, that recess. We've got 1 and 2. Is that right? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
You're just missing a line.
But this looks all in one plane.
Yeah. In order to
Right,
have
to
enough
do that.
space for that.
So would this then just come straight down?
Right here.
It looks like it would, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So this section would be, here.
Okay.
And are those perforations, or are they?
Yeah, the you're talking about in this field here, yes, this is daylight all the way through.
Okay.
Oh, there's just one depth, not two,
For this to work, I guess.
for that to work. But he's saying that there's two, and there's going to be a line drawn vertically down here that isn't drawn on the plans. Which way do you want to go with it?
Oh, is that? Okay.
It's got to be one
So
or the
there's
other.
It's got to be one or the other.
Yeah. That would make this one a double depth, and this is a single
Right,
depth.
and in order to accommodate this, we could have one at 8-inch, and then the remainder of this would have to be at the same depth in this zone here.
All right.
So I guess we'll have to rethink this. It works here, but we don't have enough room here. So I don't see it being boxed out like this, no.
Okay.
Okay.
So it's just going to be one reveal the
One
way Chris
reveal.
drew it.
Right.
Okay.
And what would that depth be? Just to talk about it and note it on the plans.
Is that 1
Inch and a half.
An inch and a half.
Couldn't it be 3?
Pretty thick. There's a lot going on inside this bridge rail.
There's structural considerations.
So as we come into a 3-inch cantilever, this rail, which is pretty substantial, is starting to be undercut by quite a bit.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so that is the railing design. And then as a review, the corner sidewalk paving, all four corners, has this 4-foot by 4-foot diagonal score with ceramic tile insets. And if you remember, what was being proposed and was accepted by the board was that we were going to go to VAP, Visual Arts and Public Places Committee, and we were going to initiate an art exercise whereby local school children would take 4x4 ceramic tiles, and then they would paint them and glaze them and fire them, designs reflecting the fact that Mission Creek is running underneath here. That's what's been proposed all along. And so we can come back with some examples of that if you like.
Oh, okay.
Again, the deck itself is a mesa buff. It's sort of a real pale.
In this area here.
I'm talking about this. So this is a contrasting color to the deck. I mean, it's integral color matching the Chapala Street design guidelines, and that's what we talked about. This
Contrasting to the deck, this is the deck, right?
well, this is okay. Yeah, this is the bridge deck.
The bridge deck.
And this will be concrete, exposed concrete.
Okay.
Okay, so you've got asphalt to here.
Right.
In this, and then if you remember, we had another little sort of art element. We had a 12-inch wide band of plain concrete on either side of the bridge deck, and that would be given to an artist too to just do sort of a bas relief, artistic design reflecting, creek-like elements as well.
Okay.
That's the intent.
Okay.
Then, I should point out too that, although they're not shown on my plans, but you'll probably find them in there, there will be both street lighting at this corner and this corner, in addition to traffic signal poles, and you probably find them in there. And just for your benefit, this is design proposed as sort of the city standard with the composite concrete poles and the Lumec Domus fixture.
All right.
That'll be integrated as part of this overall design. Okay. What's shown on, let's see, it's a little easier scale to read, but I'll point this out. So in addition to the bridge structure itself, there will be transition walls here, 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 and here. And as we'd indicated before, they will be constructed with concrete with a sort of an ornamental, if you will, form liner that will result in this look. This is, but it has not this cap. It'll have a large stone-like cap with a 2-inch reveal on the creek side. So this is what we're using down at Cabrillo Bridge Project, which was approved most recently by HLC. And so this is essentially what it looks like. This reflects the historic sandstone block that's up and down.
Okay, and that's
Up and down.
here and here.
Yes.
On all four corners.
Okay,
They're called transition walls because we're transitioning back into the creek corridor.
okay.
And I think that takes care of most of the major hardscape elements. I should point out too. There is also metal fencing being proposed. We have to be able to secure these areas and provide an opportunity to keep people from getting in here and falling into the creek. So there will be, what's being proposed by the city is 6-foot high black chain link that comes from here at the back of the sidewalk and then down here at the edge of the transition wall. And also at this location here. Oh yeah, and also at the top, all the transition walls have chain link along the top of them, and then at the back of the sidewalk here, and then down to here, and it interfaces with existing board fence, which is the property of the private landowner there. And then on this side, there is existing board fence. I don't know if we have pictures of that, but maybe show it now.
We certainly do here.
It's a 6-foot board fence, like 1 by 12s, I
Try to
think they
get
are,
this
1 by
in there.
10s. And that will come, it's not shown on my plans, it's shown on the civil plans, but
This is the board fence here.
yeah. And it'll come here, and then down behind the last pilaster of the concrete railing, and then along the transition wall.
Like this one.
Yeah, exactly. And then right now there's an existing block wall here, and then that'll stay, and then they'll construct a new board fence at the top of this transition wall here. So these will be private property spaces here and here, and adjacent to this guy here. Okay.
Can I also, if I read you correctly, what you said is that not only is there a 6-foot fence here and here, but that 6-foot fence would also exist here
That's correct.
and here
Yeah.
and here and here,
This is board, or
That's
these are
board.
wooden fences.
and this is wooden here.
And
Is that
here,
it?
and here.
This, today, there's an existing concrete sound wall here.
Yes.
And that sound wall will be reconstructed to secure this guy's property.
Okay.
So you're landscaping behind the 6-foot high fence.
In these cases, yes.
And why is that?
Yeah, just
Why the fence in front of the landscaping?
Well, there's a concern from the folks in the neighborhood to secure these spots such that transient folks don't set up residence right here. So that's the purpose for the front fence. Certainly the back fence, we've got fairly high transition walls that you would need to protect folks because this fall is on the order of 10 feet.
Are we in call for questions yet, or are they done with their
Still making my
presentation?
presentation.
I thought
Making a
so.
presentation.
Sorry, I interrupted.
Okay, that's
Okay,
what's being
so-
proposed in terms of fencing.
Okay.
This is the planting plan as well. I think it sort of speaks for itself. Essentially what we're doing is sort of a riparian planting. We have sycamores, and per one of the comments, there's an oak tree that'll go here at this little triangle. And if you look at the plans, you'll see that all the sizes are 1 gallon, and that's because it's our intention to basically contract grow the material so that we will have genetic purity in terms of the proposed plant materials, not unlike what we're doing down at Cabrillo Bridge project. So we just didn't want to use conventional nursery stuff. We wanted to make this a authentic riparian revegetation plan. In addition to that, we do have sort of standard 24-inch box trees on Haley. We have Stenocarpus and Euadus, the firewheel tree, here, and here. And then to sort of augment what's there, same species. And then up and down on De La Vina Street, we have a single to sort of match the Podocarpus that exists there now. We have one specimen here, too. And then in the parkway strips, as indicated by this diagonal hatch at these locations, that would be stabilized DG. All the trees in the street would have root control barriers. And think that's sort of, yeah, this is just irrigation and detail. So I think that sort of completes the presentation. Open to questions now.
Okay. Do we have a public comment? Opening for public comment.
Yeah, we have one letter in opposition from Ms. Paula Westbury.
Okay, thanks. Seeing no one in the audience, I'll close that portion and bring it back to the board for questions. I guess our first question really is Dawn, you had a question?
Yeah, actually, they kind of answered it. Mine's going to turn into a comment, but
yeah.
I did have one other question. But go ahead, Chris.
Can I make one more comment because it was on your list of comments? It has to do with crosswalks.
Yes.
I think there was a request to maybe redesign them, but I think based on conversations that the city has had with transportation, and given the number of kids that traverse this area, I think the city was interested, would prefer to keep a more conventional standard crosswalk configuration, just because anything different and new might invite confusion, and given the number of kids and the fact that there are school buses along here.
Or city buses that are serving school children. They thought it was best to stay with standard convention considering the heavy volume of bus riders at this location.
And this is painted striping, is that it?
That's right.
Okay. Okay,
thank you.
Other questions on the board? Keith?
Do you have a detail of the relationship of the chain link on top of the transition wall?
It's, no, it's just immediately in back of the transition wall. The transition wall is a reinforced concrete wall, and so it butts right up against the back of it.
Yeah. I should point out that the wall comes and terminates behind the pilaster at this location here, so it doesn't come up at the end of it, in other words. And I believe that there's going to be a gate shown here, too, at some point.
And these are 42-inch high.
No, they're
across the
4.5.
bridge.
I think they're 46 inches high.
Yes.
46 inches high.
Yeah.
And perhaps that.
I don't know if there's a dimension on it.
Perhaps that.
Oh, Gary?
Are you in the middle of a question? Or?
36 plus 8.
Oh, way okay. Go ahead.
Was there any cabinet furniture, i.e. trash cans or anything included on this project?
The trash receptacles, hard to see. Here's one in this very, very foreground here. Those are going to be maintained, but in terms of...
and where were they located on the plan? I didn't see them. They might be too small.
Let's see if we could...
They're not shown on that plan.
Okay.
They call it cabinet furniture? Oh, that's for traffic lights.
They're existing and they will remain. The trash can, one of them is that one that was in that picture right by the bus stop, is right here. That's the one that comes to mind right offhand.
And is there any that are near where the creek would be?
This is
on either side, where the people would walk by the creek to keep them from throwing trash into the creek.
I suppose that could be included.
I think
in
you're
a
talking
corner
about
like this.
in here.
And I'm talking about there.
There's plenty of room.
I think that's a good suggestion.
Plenty of room.
City, of course, has their standard trash cans. So
Yeah,
just order
that's
another
trash
one as
can.
part of these plans, sure.
I have one question.
Go ahead.
Just for David, when you mentioned that the arts program was going to do a glazed ceramic 4x4 tile, is that going to be too slippery?
I think we'll just probably integrate some sort of nod skid finish on it, which you can do in the glaze.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm aware of that. We'll make sure of that.
Cool.
And then the diagonal is just that buff-colored concrete. Oh.
The diagonal in the street.
The diagonal. These just that buff-colored.
Yeah, Mesa buff and
Mesa
colors,
buff. Okay.
which is what you see on Chapala Street now.
Right. Other questions?
Mr. Chair?
Yep. No?
So, David, we're trying to figure out the significance of talking about riparian plants when, in fact, that whole planter appears to be at sidewalk level, and it's really not related to any natural riparian environment. Are we,
This does slope down, does it not, Scott?
It has a small grade across it here, but it's certainly not down at, say, at the elevation of the water surface. It's
of the
not even
creek?
close. No.
Right.
Well, this is something I think that the city is promoting as well. I mean, I've done projects, there's a project down by the railroad station on the other side of the creek, and we're probably 15 feet above the water of the creek, and we're being asked to, along a 20-foot buffer, to provide riparian plantings. And so I wasn't going to ignore that fact. So this is our best effort, particularly in an area like this, which is going to get little or no maintenance over the long run. I mean, we'd like to see it be, have some relationship to the creek. Ultimately, if in fact it happens, when the Corps of Engineers comes in here and redoes and widens the right-of-way of Mission Creek, all that planting on either side is going to be, native riparian material. And so I'm just trying to be consistent with that.
And so even though you're trying to create a riparian environment, you're still proposing irrigation.
Well, at least initially, yeah. The work that we're doing, say, down at Cabrillo, just adjacent to the parking lot at the beach house, for instance, on the north side of Mission Creek there, we have drip irrigation in there, and then south of downstream of the bridge at Cabrillo, we have irrigation system set up there to at least for the establishment of all plant materials. Not to say we can't turn it off later on. That's the way it's done, but it's based on my most recent experience doing this kind of work.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I have a question actually for Carol. And Chris, applicant made a comment about using 1-gallon plants because they're going to grow themselves locally. And the one thing that triggered my mind was that the circle for the new oak tree that's in that corner of the property is going to be a 1-gallon oak tree, and there's going to be a 6-foot board fence on the other side. So it's probably going to get weed-whacked by the owner. That's what my thinking when I finally connected all the dots, and I wanted your comments on that and how important it is to grow from seed stock. And then looking at the plans, I was noticing the sycamore trees are also going to be 1-gallon sycamore trees. And I just wondered from your perspective if that was sound landscape planning.
Maybe both, but I'll throw in a comment at the beginning of that. That was something that we had been kind of whispering about at the beginning of this project. Having that riparian area raised to the point where it's the same as the sidewalk, and it's really relating much more to the sidewalk and to the urban environment right there on the intersection, that the 1 gallons is small. I mean, it should be more in scale to really be with what the urban neighborhood is looking at and not down below where the creek is. It's a good idea always to grow your seeds if you are truly creating a similar urban environment, so there aren't foreign plants coming in an area that is natural, but we're not on the creek bed. So to me, in my comment section, I was going to respond that these small plants and this type of garden isn't consistent. I don't think this is a good use of that theory of a riparian garden.
Are you talking about just that single oak or all these plantings?
I'm just looking at page 41 in that area. Is that the page you're on too?
Yeah.
In that area, in this situation.
This one here in the corner here?
No, it's the one that's lower.
4 sycamores that I counted.
The lower one. In these areas. But I'd like to hear Chris's comments on that question too.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I mean, I'm sure the city has a preference, like David mentioned, and they're trying to get you to do this on multiple projects. And if it does end up being 1 gallon, there should at least be some sort of a protective fencing around those plants so that they aren't just weed whacked.
Well, this one is actually outside the fence line here, so it's not like this property owner is going to weed whack it.
Oh.
Let's see, because this is that block wall, and then the board fence comes along here.
Yeah. Well, it's understandable. We've changed the fence in order to incorporate this little triangle for this street. But
I mean, I certainly understand what you're saying. I mean, don't get me wrong, but I don't like using 1 gallon plants. But I'm sort of being a purist when it comes to this material, or this particular design. So, I'm perfectly willing to go back to the city and see what they say about it, their environmental section. And, we may, if I was going to make an exception, it would be here, not necessarily down there.
Are there other, locally grown oaks or oaks grown from local seeds that are at the nursery that you can buy that's at least a 36-inch or 24-inch size box that's been growing for, for a while, or everything you buy is just in the 1 gallon little twig?
No, not necessarily, but I'm sure.
It's just a better idea to plant a smaller plant because we'll go into the space.
Material. I'm sure Carol and Christopher would agree that smaller native material is much more appropriate than trying to stick a big box in there, especially one that's not from this area.
Yeah. That was my comment to you.
Yeah, because I know when they do Mission Creek, for instance, it's going to be all contract grown. I guarantee that. So I was just trying to be consistent with what I think will happen down the road, and certainly we'll have a jump on some of that other material by the time it gets built. So
I tend to agree with Carol, though, that since it's raised up at street level and there's a wall sort of separating it from the riparian zone itself, to me it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to just plant little 1 gallon. If it was a bank or a slope that went into the creek itself.
What would you recommend if you wanted to make a comment?
Well, for the trees, we were talked about at least 15-gallon plants. But again, I think I would recommend that just talk to the city and see what they think about that.
I'm open to that.
Okay. Any more? Other questions? Other questions? Clay?
You just mentioned the oak tree on the De La Vina side, that one right there, that the fence is going around that. So is there another fence for protection from the creek?
Originally, the sound wall that we see in this aerial photo, when I say originally, today there's a sound wall that butts up against the bridge rail. I don't know if you can see it. It's in this little tiny picture right here. Can you see how the sound wall is touching the bridge rail?
Yeah.
What we're going to do here is we're going to terminate the sound wall at this point, and the sound wall is going to turn along this purple line here, so that we have a way to get at that tree to maintain it. Then this little space right here is a little chunk of chain link fence, so that we can get at it.
Between here and here.
Right.
So
there's
and that's being proposed at 6 feet.
Right. Yeah. To match
It'll have a gate on
to
it
match
or
this
something?
wall. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Comments.
Mr. Chair, I still have a question.
Okay. Gary.
Yeah, it looks to me like on 136 and 132 West Haley Street, you're going to be removing some fences, and then it looks like there's 6-foot fences.
136th West Haley is on the upstream side of the bridge. I'll make sure everybody's with me here. This way is uphill towards the mountains, Brownie's Market, stream going this way. This parcel right here is 136 West Haley.
Right.
Next door to it, to the east or towards Chapala Street, is 132 West Haley. In regard to removing the fences, the building that's this property is being purchased. Are you aware of that?
No.
Okay. The whole parcel is purchased by the city for this job, and so consequently the fences will be removed so that we can have room to stage. But afterwards, this fence that goes back in will be just like it is today, which is primarily only about 3 feet high or something like that, 3 or 4 feet high. Next door to it is a 6-foot fence.
And next door to it is 6 foot. And how far is that 6-foot fence off the property line?
It's right on the property line.
And that property's not being purchased, right?
Right. That's the 132.
Is that the one with the dog?
That's the one with the dog, yeah.
Is that why you were asking that question? There's a mean dog.
I think there's more than one dog behind that fence.
Behind that fence.
I'm asking that question because of how close that fence is to the sidewalk.
It's right up onto the sidewalk.
But they're not doing anything on that parcel.
They're removing that fence.
We're removing the
This
fence. We're removing the fence in order to reprofile the roadway, to get the roadway to match the bridge. So yeah, we are removing the fence, but the fence that's going to go back in is just like the existing one.
Well, the fence is non-conforming, is it not?
Yep. It's a non-conforming fence.
How tall is it?
I think it's on the order of 6 feet.
Oh, it is, okay.
Yeah.
It's not conforming.
It'll have to be dropped down to 42 inches.
Yeah, I think from right-of-way negotiations and so forth with the neighborhood, I think that in order to come to terms with this property owner, I believe this is the way that the deal that you needed to make with the owner, right, James?
That was part of right-of-way negotiations.
So,
Just to clarify that the deal was the owner knows that it's going to be a 42-foot high fence.
other
At
way
the end of
around.
the day.
Other way around. We wanted to go to a 42 inch, right?
42 inch.
Yeah, 42 inch
High.
fence. That's what we wanted to put in, but we were heading for trouble.
So you have 4 feet from the curb line to the fence. Is that what you have indicated on the plan?
No, it's
What is this one right here?
10 feet here.
the four.
What does that 4 feet indicate?
During construction, we heard about those dogs.
Yeah.
On this green line here, I don't know if you can see this. This is a temporary construction easement. We're going to build a temporary chain link fence to contain those pets on this line here. Our contractor is going to do that. Afterwards, the private owner the way the project is set up right now, he will build this fence right back in the exact same configuration that it is.
I know, I just don't see how the city's going to allow you to do that with your permit, because everybody else has to lower their fences during construction.
Right.
So I think you're going to need a mod.
Well, actually, why don't we just say that this is a staff deal and not an ABR issue to resolve?
It's
Yeah.
an aesthetic deal. I think it adds blight to that corner.
Well, one thing that he said was that the homeowner was going to be building back the fence. He didn't say that his contractor was going to be
No,
building
but it's
back.
part of their deal. It's part of their contract.
It's part of the scope of work.
Allow them access to the site.
And I'm not really opposed to the 6 foot high. I mean, myself, I'm not opposed to the 6 foot high fence, but I'd like to see some relief and some landscaping on it. If it was covered with creeping fig or something like that, that would make it look like green rather than a tagging wall.
Right.
I think it would be a little bit nicer. But if it's a fence right on the sidewalk, I think it adds to blight in the neighborhood.
This is what we have.
Exactly.
Of course, if that property's ever sold, zoning would make them remove it, or at least knock it down.
Or if any work was done.
Which there is, which is what's triggering all. We'll just bring it up in the minutes that
Yeah.
I think you guys will have to deal with that in the permitting process.
I think we'll have to defer to the city on that. They're the ones that headed up the negotiations with the property owners. So.
With this, although this isn't part of your question, the same creeping fig idea is incorporated where we can on 513, where we're going to have a concrete wall right there. That fig is included in the project for that exact purpose.
Yeah, it is.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. On the bluff tile, can we make a comment on that, or has that already been approved and the way it is, it's set in stone, or I'm confused on?
The minutes said that we were comfortable with the coloration that we were going for.
With coloration, I'm talking about the pattern itself, the overall design of where the tiles are.
It's not really tile, it's concrete.
Well, the concrete. The patterns.
The concrete color is to match the Chapala Street color and pattern. That's what we have.
So can we comment on the overall design of it? That was my question.
We can.
Okay. Then
if this is the color and pattern that we have at the Chapala Street.
I'm fine with the color and pattern. I'm talking about the overall layout of it, how it extends.
I'd say go ahead and comment.
So I have a question. I'm trying to, every time we look at like what we call a node, and I'll defer to the landscapers, is we're trying to make the intersections become energy. And every time we look at an intersection, we're trying to balance it and make it work and make it look like it's an intersection when people are coming to it. I don't have a problem with, when we saw an overall view of it, we don't even know there's a bridge over there. This is kind of clean, and here's an intersection. Now, how do we make this intersection look more exciting as an intersection, even though we don't even see the bridge? This being artwork, I don't have a problem with all this concern. My concern is this finger going out here and this floating over here. Is there some way that we can make this look more like it's four-corner intersection than having? That's just an observation I'm asking, and I would float that over to the landscape architects to see if that relates to, if they have an issue with that. That's just my question.
Well, I think that, you bring up a good point, but I think given the constraints that we have in terms of private properties, it's a little difficult. If we were working with a blank slate, I'd say fine, we could do that. But
was there a way that maybe we can cut, still have concrete coming here and making this sort of look more like a corner? I'm just trying to throw something out to and let them jump in if I'm way out of bounds here.
Well, I think that I think that this portion of the discussion or that portion of the review we have actually gone through in the earlier stage when we actually had a lot of discussion on the odd shapes that were happening, and I think we all came to the consensus after is that we have a difficult situation to work with here, and the board had reached a consensus that what they are proposing now in terms of the massing of what they have was acceptable.
Okay. That was my question,
and so it's just that we have passed that beyond that stage, but I understand where you are at. Am I right? That's what I recall, that we went over that in quite a lot of detail.
But for the sake of discussion, I think this is a vast improvement over what's there now. You can't. One of the things that we notice is that you can't even tell that there's a creek running under here, that there's a bridge. Whereas, and the fact that we're taking, this house out and basically reinforcing the visual aspect of the bridge railings, I think it gives it results in a much nicer relationship between the two railings, such that you can actually read that there's that it is a bridge, and the fact that too that we have that this is concrete deck as opposed to everything being asphalt.
Right.
I think will help sort of reinforce that.
Yeah.
And the fact that it's off center, the way the creek, it comes here and then it sort of slides back here, it makes it tough.
All right. Okay, we just have 5 minutes here to wrap it up. I just want to verify, this is the pattern we're using at Chapala, right?
It's the 4x4, yes.
Okay.
With the tile.
Okay, so far, just trying to wrap it up here. The issues that I think, the lighting is okay. If anyone has any thoughts.
Are we finished with comments?
I thought we were, but go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah.
I have a few too.
Okay, Darren.
Okay, so I'm very supportive of the city's environmental policies of their direction for planting native and riparian. However, I do feel for this project and at this time in history that we have not started the project to turn this into a widened creek.
We have, though, in Cabrillo.
We have?
Yeah,
okay.
Cabrillo, just last week we got HLC approved. It's like a total, riparian planting down there. Not like what we did at Borough Beach.
Okay.
Like
and so what you're saying is that this section is going to follow that in a timely manner? Because for me, reviewing this, it hasn't been, we're not looking at an application to turn this into a riparian habitat. It's not there yet. That's not what's on the table. That's not the project that we're reviewing. We're reviewing walls, fences, bridge, hardscape, and landscaping.
Correct.
And so, I'm kind of struggling here because if I'm asked to believe what's going to happen in the future, I look at it one way. If I'm looking at what is on the table today, I'm looking at it in a different way. So what's on the table today, my comment about the landscaping is, even though I'm very supportive of the riparian type of palette and direction, The landscape opportunities in this project, as shown on the plan, is really relating to the urban neighborhood. It's not relating to the creek. And my comment is, I would appreciate, on behalf, for you to have a discussion with the city and seeing if there might be a compromise where there might be a combination of bigger trees that are not necessarily field grown, or maybe some field grown smaller ones and some larger ones, and to use your best judgment of how to mix the concern that this is really a streetscape planting and not a riparian planting project.
So just so I'm clear, Carol, do you have an issue with the palette of plant material or the sizes of the plant material that are called out?
I would say the size more than anything else.
So if I were to go to the city, now, the fact that it's riparian, this palette of material, this is a direction that was given to us by the city early on.
I agree.
Before we started.
I understand.
So if you don't have an issue with the palette of material, that's fine. And then I'd be happy to go to the city and talk about, their feelings about
foregoing on the requirement that field grown, and perhaps some of the trees could be nursery stock that gives us a larger presence at the street.
There are only 5 trees in the entire project. The streetscape itself, when you talk about streetscape, as far as the podocarpus and the firewheel trees, those are 24-inch boxes. So up and down Haley and De La Vina, we've addressed that. It's just that these areas adjacent to the creek, we've taken a sort of a more purist direction,
Okay.
which
Well,
I don't have any problem with myself, but
Okay.
I'm happy to talk to them about
okay,
it.
I'd appreciate that. My
Sure.
second comment is, we all observe that the best deterrent for tagging is landscaping. And we just see examples throughout all through, you see a blank wall, blank tag, plants in front of the wall, no tagging. It's like the cheapest, most effective way of deterring tagging. And so wherever possible, my comment is wherever possible, if we have opportunities that we could introduce planting in front of fences or walls or things that you think are real obvious tagging situations, if you could see if there's any opportunities to incorporate landscaping in front of it. And what my personal observation has always been is clinging vines on hard surfaces is a perfect anti-tagging situation.
Well, I have taken the opportunity, and I don't know if you saw it, but Scott pointed it out. There's an existing block wall here, and we've got Ficus pumila wrapping around there. So we did take that opportunity, but the rest of the fencing, I'm not going to put Ficus on board fences.
No.
Yeah, actually, we can't take credit for introducing a new idea. This is already there, and it's a wonderful idea.
Right.
So,
okay.
But your point's well taken, and if I see another opportunity, we can't. It's difficult to do it on chain link, but that won't be a tagging issue.
No, that's
anyway,
not.
So, point taken.
Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Sure.
My comments will be that we want to add recycling and trash at bridge crossings to deter people to throwing trash into the creek. To paint the new cabinet furniture, i.e. signal boxes, green, not to purchase stainless steel ones that are bright and similar to the one that's there. Also to study the fencing height that are within the setback areas, and including the proposed fencing height of what they have on their project, the 6-foot high fence in the area. But I am also concerned, and Don brought this up, and I'll bring it up as well. I'm also concerned that one of the original concepts of the creek project or the bridge projects was pocket parks, and part of purchasing these lots and these houses was to have a pocket park, an area that a bench would be, that someone could sit down and have enjoy the outdoors. And I'm a little bit upset that they're having a fence to block off these landscape areas. The idea was that the public would have outdoor space to enjoy. And in fact, we're putting a fence in front of it saying there's plants behind there, but you got outdoor space. That isn't it. So I have concerns that these areas are going to be blocked off from public use.
Thanks, Gary. I have a similar concern about that. Is the 6-foot fencing here? I think the very statement that Gary said kind of relates right to it. Relates to that, and I'd like.
At the very least, to rethink that 6-foot fence here, and give the public back that landscaping. And there may be other solutions where I think that if you had to have a higher fence, that could be back, but there could be more in here that the public could feel, I could see that because of this depth and narrowness, it becomes a problem and somebody can go back there. But, maybe there's a way that some of that can become more of the public realm. And then maybe the bushes right in front of that fence could, detour. And also I think, I agree that we should have at least a trash container, at least somewhere on this side, because we do have trash from time to time ending up on this end of the bridge. But the fencing is really the item for me. And over here at 132 Haley,
Right.
If any amenities could be made to have fines on that fence, and I would leave it for you and the city on the agreement. But we would understand that fence in a normal situation would be returned to 42 inches high, but we just leave that to you guys. Okay, who would like to make a motion on this? Or
Mr. Chair, I'll craft a motion if everyone can perk up their ears and just double check that I'm covering everything. Believe there'll be.
Excuse me? Could you, maybe you can do it outside. You can converse outside, it would be fine.
With the board, we're going to be giving this preliminary and final at this review with the following comments. One is that the applicant is to work with the city staff for the tree sizes and increase the tree sizes where possible using nursery stock. 15-gallon is the preferred. Second is the applicant is to work with senior staff to review the existing overheight fence at 132 East Haley Street that is being reconstructed as a part of this project to verify that it can be rebuilt at that height. And if it is to be rebuilt at a height over 42 inches to integrate clinging vine material to the fence to prevent tagging as well as neighborhood beautification. Third is to provide a landscaping and trash receptacles at each side of the bridge. And 4 is to paint all signal boxes and all built man-made electronic devices, cabinets that are on the deck. And that is all I had, those 4.
The color of that will be what?
Malibu green.
I'm sorry?
Malibu green.
Okay.
There we go, that color green.
Yeah.
That is my motion.
Do we have a second? Under discussion?
Do you want to include something about that fence, the 6-foot fence, and a little
In this
potential
area.
for pocket park within the motion?
Item 5 for the motion would be that the applicant is to study on is this the downstream side?
Yeah.
On the downstream side to relocate the 6-foot chain link fence approximately 3 feet from the back, from where it is currently.
I prefer not saying.
I prefer not saying it.
Relocating the chain link fence. I'm sorry. Item 5 for the motion would be the applicant is to study relocating the 6-foot chain link fence on the downstream side away from the sidewalk to provide some landscaping on the pedestrian side of the walkway.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Can I ask that number 3 is repeated? I
Didn't quite get all the words.
Number 3 was to provide a recycling and trash receptacle at each side of the bridge.
Recycle and trash.
And trash.
Okay.
The question I had, were we talking like a total of 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4, or just 1 at each side of the bridge this
I
direction?
thought 1 at each side of the
One on
bridge.
each side of the bridge because it looks like across the street.
Yeah. So
It's a pretty small project. You Yeah, it looks bigger than it really is.
So really, it's a
It's a use thing.
yes, it's two.
Two. The one on each side.
Yeah, fine.
They're doubles, though? I mean, trash and recycling?
Kind of like divided in the middle or something. Maybe.
Oh, I see, sure.
Yeah.
Although,
Those are the 5 comments.
Did you, is that all right to leave it out? Okay.
Okay, so the seconder agrees to changing, to embellishing it as just stated. Did you change your motion?
I did not change the motion. The recycling and the trash is located on each side of the bridge for a quantity of 2.
Okay.
Okay, so we have a first and second. Any other items for under discussion? No? Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Against? Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Abstention? Thank you. Okay.
Step down.
Yes. Thanks, Keith. Yeah. So number 2, 825 De La Vina Street.
Do you want to keep that? Sure. You want it? You can have it. I don't need
Take it easy, Scott.
Oh, thank you.
We'll get it back up. We're determined to crank this puppy.
Shut this microphone off.
Hi, Don.
Rattle all this stuff. So
I was just going to pop in and say someone took it. I had one there.
Okay, thanks.
Good. We got a couple supplemental pieces.
Single family.
Here and find a mic that's on. Okay, I'm Doug Singletary from B3 Architects in Santa Barbara, and I'm happy to represent the project today. The project was before you last summer, and we've been asked to take into account your comments and adjust it and have redesigned it. I think taking into account all of those comments. There's a couple of supplements that we've got, and these are just additions to your set to help out because this pass this over here and pass this down that way. Not really modifications so much as supplements. So for orientation purposes, project site De La Vina and Canon Perdido. This is the mall. There's a sort of an urban transect going here from the more dense State Street corridor, moving towards a less dense area, and then moving off to residential beyond. So it's a true transect that we've got happening here.
Excuse me. Sorry, Doug.
Mr. Chair, this is the third time this project's been in front of us, and only one person, or maybe 2 people haven't seen it. So you don't have to go that far back to the beginning.
Excellent. Very good. Part of what we're looking at, again, so you'll know that this is here for reference. You're probably pretty familiar with the landmarks. We have this building shown and the neighbor building shown, yes, and so forth. Yep. So I can cut that short. Right. This is in the same neighborhood as well. So. All right. What we were, in looking at your comments, what we understood that, well, let's look at the...
Would you like me to go through the comments, or
yeah,
are you coming at it from a... Okay. 1, the board would prefer to see a revised site plan with an alternative entry approach rather than the center courtyard. which will A. address the adjacent environments, in particular the properties to the north, the blank wall, and south, the Italiante building. B. demonstrate a significant amount of respect for the existing landscape environment, specifically the pine tree at the neighboring south. C. respect the driveway approach of the garages and parking lot. And D. a significant amount of usable and functional landscape area shall be shown on the proposed plans.
Great. That's a great intro. I also have the plan that you were referring to at that time, so you'll have a here to refresh your memory on. Here's the plan as it stood previously. And the pine tree that was mentioned in those notes is this pine tree up at this corner.
Yes.
The blank wall and the light wells of the adjacent northern property. The southern property had these buildings along the side, and the old plan had a double-loaded corridor and this sort of, well, I'll say massing, but this footprint. I won't pull out the massing for you to look at, but you can. Let's just focus on the site plan for now.
Good. Thanks.
In response to that, we took a look at the site. We have a block up at this end where we're right at the zero property line. That's our northern property boundary. And then the rest of the neighborhood starts to fall away and has more setback. We looked at that and saw the opportunity to essentially establish a line for ourselves from the corner of this building to the corner of that building and formulate a setback line to establish how to approach that and fit in. Keeping in mind that this is a C2 occupancy or a C2 zone, and the requirements on this zone are a zero setback. So we've essentially what we did was we applied an R3 setback at a minimum on all sides except where we already have a zero setback in respect of the neighborhood. We also went away from the double-loaded corridor and went to a single access point down this side. What that did was help pull us away from these buildings. We now are against this wall. That's the zero lot line on the north, and then putting a break between two buildings rather than one, so that there would be ample light into this light well. This light well is a slightly different case where we've provided a light well, which you'll see in our massing wedding cakes back up and away so that the light, and we'll have an analysis here in a moment that shows the light going into this light well. And by the way, the existing light wells are slightly different in the field, so we'll get into that a little bit more too. These are now a mixed-use situation where, I shouldn't say mixed-use so much as this is the Santa Barbara approach to live-work, where we don't have communicating access from the commercial space in these three units. Each of these three units is a two-bedroom unit. The rest of these units, the four units at the back are one-bedroom. One of the things that we've done, and we've checked this out with the parking people and traffic folks, each of these garages is a tandem parking garage so that there's a device for stacking. You probably started to see this more and more, and so I have the details on that. And so the plate heights, when we get to the elevations, you'll see plate heights going from 10 to 9 to 8, going up, stepping up. And so you have the higher plate to get to two cars, two cars, two cars, two cars, and so forth. Also for parking, for these commercial spaces and for guests, we have the surface parking in these four locations, as well as the disabled access at the front. We've taken, like I say, the opportunity, and you'll see this, I think, a little bit later in the illustration, of looking at the texture of the neighborhood. There's right now there's a hedge that goes around this side. There's already a small wall here and here existing. And we've taken that kind of concept and some hedging into account for the future look and feel of the building. And again, what we tried to do was mass against the existing building. Here we have a duplex at the back. Actually, it's a residence. I'm not certain it's a duplex, but there's a residence at the back. Kept a 10-foot setback at this property line and yards. In terms of statistics as compared with the previous project, it's a 21% decrease in the gross area of the building, a 10% decrease in the footprint, and 125% increase in landscaping compared to the other one. So that single loaded aspect really helped, and also going to the single car stacked garages helped a lot with the texture, the feel on the land. As we step up then in the building, we also cake back at this end. I want to point that out at all ends. So you'll see more up. Should I turn that off?
Yes. Turn it off. There you go.
We have living at the second floor. This is cut back in already, and these have cut back in a bit. And then we have at the third floor bedrooms. Now, we met with them, our office met with the property owners both to the north and south of us 3 different times. And as recently as earlier this week, we had some communications with the owner over here, and we'll talk about some options that come up here still trying to deal with these light wells. But this was what we presented to you, and I have one of the things in that packet that I handed out is another option in working with the owners. What you'll notice also on this is that over at the west end, there's not a third floor. At this point now, we're back 28 feet plus, so we don't go up to a third floor at the back to open this up back on this back side. So that's also caking up and caking up. We move into then some illustrations on A3.0, and this is the massing before the option that I'm going to talk about. Coming down the De La Vina Street side, kind of upside down to it, but this is the pine tree that was in question. You'll see in the plan views we did ease back from the pine tree. We've eased back from the south side in particular, and we've organized the building around this well at this side and staying on the blank walls of the larger building to our north. At the front edge, what we're planning on doing is continuing on with this hedge concept that ties into the hedge that's already existing next door, and in fact there is an existing fence right about there. Yeah. More illustrations from different locales really closer in and on the site. But we're taking our cues from architecturally. I think we might have that actually in this set. Again, I handed you an update on this, but architecturally, this is a lot of reference to Irving Gill types of architecture, and that's this set. So this is our real touchstone for history in Southern California with Irving Gill and some Schindler with the lighter looks for the top of the building. And then where our offices are located, this is Santa Barbara, and our office actually is up here at the Riviera Research Park. But from around town, and if you look at the character of this neighborhood, it's it's not a little bit, it's a lot all over the place. But this is what we think was the appropriate way to meld in with that neighborhood. And so you'll see this sense of the arch form and the sort of the Irving Gill take on modern Spanish style with the lighter weight so that we can get a mix of heavier towards the bottom, a splash of color in these tile forms that we're anticipating, plaster, and then a siding effect and a lighter weight floating at the top. That's the vernacular that we're trying to emulate here. This is the, I'll let you orient yourself. I think you can do that. Again, the elevations of the same thing, and taking into account, this is again the 10.98 plate heights. And again, you're all trained in your eye to understand these buildings, I think.
Excuse me.
See what I didn't collect up on. I think that covers it, except for an option that we wanted to talk about. In my set. We brought in a building section to show this light well aspect too, because we wanted to study that closer. And so, and that's part of the sheets that I just handed out. This, regardless of which option we get to, and I'll explain the difference between the two in a moment, this section illustrates what the well would be in between the buildings related to the well of the existing building. One of the things that we looked at was if this were a residential site, which it isn't, but if it were a residential site, what are the sightline setbacks that are required for an adjacent site? And that's this dotted line right here. What we've set up in our actual design is actually lower and more accessible than that would have been if it was applicable. We have a winter and a summer, and we got dimensions from the neighbor next door and applied those to put these onto the site here. So that's the nature in section. One of the concerns that came up right around the holidays was if you look back at the submittal that you had as compared with this alternate, there was a concern about at the upper floor of this unit having this deck be potentially a privacy issue to this light well, looking back down into the offices that are surrounding this. Additionally, there's always been, and early on, our first efforts had these blinders, if you will, that were right next to this light well. We backed them off, and there's always been a concern about the lateral effect of light as well. And so in order to mitigate that, then what happened was in this alternate, this has retreated backward to this line so that there's less of that occurring. There's less of a blinder here. Now, it's unfortunate that these wells are here, and in fact, at this light well, there are, I believe, 4 skylights over the top of it. But I don't know why, those could also be opened up. Unfortunately, it's a zero lot line condition, and I don't think you'd be able to get away with building such a thing these days. But it is what it is, and we've designed around this to the best of our ability, taking into account the balancing act of the neighborhood in all other respects. So that's where we stand today, and this is an alternative that we're prepared to go forward with. The outcome of that in elevation is actually this, which is a little bit nicer actually architecturally. It takes another 100 feet out of each of these units approximately, but it also cleans this up a little bit as it tears down.
Right.
So there's not a notch going forward that you would have seen.
And then the other units at the third level, are they similar? And they would retain the option A, which would be the first one? Or?
Yeah, these 2 units at the front, which were around this light well, are the only ones that are the change in alternate.
Yes,
in
okay.
the alternate we're looking at right now.
Right.
Further back, because we've been able to get a wider space in this one,
yeah,
we were able to.
Okay.
It wasn't as big of an issue.
All right.
So that's our presentation for today.
Okay, I'm going to just open it up to the for public comment. We have 2. We have a Jeff Rodswank. Whitnow. Okay. Followed by Don Sharp, who has a letter submitted.
Thank you. Just to keep this real brief, I'm one of the partners on the project, and after the first few meetings, we realized that we were going in the wrong direction, not only with you, but with the owners, and so the owners to my north and to my south, the neighbors, I should say. And so I've personally met with these 2 gentlemen here on 3 occasions, and we're doing really the best that we can to address their concerns, and we're certainly open to more options to address the concern that Don has currently, even with the new revision that we're proposing with the light well. And we'd love your direction on how to solve that, or give us some direction. But I'm here to just tell you that we really want to work together, and I'm trying to do that and listen to your comments as well as my neighbors, and hopefully we can design a and come up with a project that's acceptable to everybody. Thank you.
Jeff. Don Sharp. And Don, I see you have a letter here. Do we need to read this after you?
I was going to read the letter
Okay,
as
that'd
my
be fine.
presentation.
Thanks.
Members of the ABR, Keith Rivera, the new architect for this project, and I have been working through many problems associated with the previous architect's submittal, and thanks to Keith and the owners, we've made giant strides toward what I feel would be a good project. As suggested by the ABR at the two previous meetings, pulling the units to the north property line against the 829 office building is a preferable solution, providing the existing two wall openings on the property line remain open. These two wall openings to atriums provide much needed and appreciated southerly light to 12 offices, openable windows with natural ventilation to 9 of the offices, and a 105 square foot balcony with 3 French doors. The building, a 55-year-old produce warehouse, was converted by me 30 years ago at a time when natural ventilation and light was very uncommon in offices. I sacrificed 320 square feet of office space, thus reducing the rental income to provide offices with these assets, substantially reducing the light and air conditioning loads required for the building, which provides less expensive utility costs for the tenants. The closing off of light and ventilation will increase the electrical bills paid by the tenants, no small matter now nor in the future. While this proposed project retains acceptable openness to the westerly atrium, the easterly atrium is severely closed off with 3-story buildings on 2 sides, approximately 12 inches from each side opening, and 2 stories on the third. I might add that the third floor building is roughly 5 to 6 feet higher than the parapet, my highest parapet, which is not what's accurately represented on these drawings. The 15-foot wide opening between 2 3-story buildings gives, I have on your letter 12, I made a mistake, it's 6 offices, very limited sunlight for a small portion of each day. As Doug mentioned, lateral sunlight is very important, and opening up a slot does not give a whole lot of light each day. And impaired ventilation to 6 offices. Further, the 3-story building masses block direct sunlight from a 48 square foot skylight over the balcony. Again, I am appreciative for the opportunity to work with the applicants and the process made thus far. Please consider my request to modify the plan to provide continued sustainability for the building and the offices and balcony negatively affected. I might also quickly add that I had a 6 or 7 foot pine tree, or I didn't. There was a 6 or 7 inch pine tree right about on the property line that was cut down when the other pines were destroyed on the other property to the south. And I'm very concerned about the stacked car solution, encouraging parking on the street, which residents can get a sticker and park on the street regularly. And so I thank you for your time on this.
Thank you, Don. We have another speaker. Is that Don L. Con?
Hi, Don Elconin. I'm the property owner at 817 De La Vina. And just briefly, I don't know what your feelings may be about the project, but it's sometimes it's not really bad guy, good guy, but it's like, you put forth the worst thing you can possibly think about to then make what comes later look so good. And I don't think that was the intent, but I'm very glad for the result in the sense that I feel that we're really going in the right direction. What was the final crescendo of the previous approach was when I came to my property on Saturday, and you know how important that Coney Island pine is, and found that without my approval, 15 limbs had been taken off and 15 limbs had been truncated on that tree. And in my ensuing discussions with the property owner and the back and forth, one thing that seems to have come from it is a change in the management of this development, which I'm very pleased with. Also, Jeff and his part has attempted to mitigate that damage by offerings that include a way of working with me, and this should hopefully come up later, as to how to properly handle the property line issues between me and them, and the mitigation of the privacy loss by that tree. Now, the damage to the tree is irreparable. It's still there, and it will live, I think, unless the beetles get it. If the beetles get it, then all bets are off. But right now, I'm attempting to work with them, and they're attempting to work with me to mitigate that. I don't know if you have any previous pictures. You might want to take a drive down and take a look at that tree. I believe there's also a tree in the front of the property, on their property, that was also taken down, which...
You need to talk into the microphone.
Excuse me, I just want to check on that to make sure. But was there not another tree in the front?
There was a street tree, roughly a, 75-year-old podocarpus that was taken out when Edison replaced the pole. And I've gone to parks to find out who would authorize it, if it can happen to any tree on De La Vina, and I've received no response over 2.5 months.
I just bring all this up only because, luckily, it does not seem to be continuing. And in fact, we seem to be going in a different direction.
Great.
But I want you to be aware of that tree, and hopefully you will be sensitive to making sure that these issues with regard to the trees and the property lines are focused on.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, bring it back to the board for questions.
Mr. Chair, I just want to also acknowledge the letter of opposition from Ms. Paula Westbury.
Thank you. Back to the board for questions.
Can I offer something that's available that I forgot to mention? This is a photograph of the light well that was under discussion.
Yep. Thanks. Okay, questions?
I have a question, Mr. Chair.
Yep. Dawn?
I'm wondering what the material is, the horizontal material on the third level, and how that relates to any of the images that you've presented as stylistically the approach that you're taking.
Right. What the stylistic approach is, what we're looking at there is a type of a siding, which is taking on this Schindler look that you're seeing here, the lightness of that, and also providing some a variation of character. It wouldn't be as dark as this. It would be a painted siding that we would use. Probably, we're thinking that it would probably be a cementitious board, which is much more environmentally and actually longevity-wise is a much better material.
So what you're doing is, just so I get this straight, you're mixing a Spanish type of a plaster architecture with a Schindler modernist type on the third level.
Right. We think it also plays off of this feel that you're getting from the Irving Gill buildings, which was a California approach to modernizing the feel of a Spanish-style building.
Thanks.
Can I segue off that same question?
Okay, Gary?
Also, I was wondering how these architectural styles that you've chosen are examples or precedents, how the third story element comes into play here. Because I don't really see that.
Well, there is actually an extra story of height in this building, if you will. It's a matter of if you're talking size, bulk, and scale, but in terms of usable space, it's not there. I know this building quite well, and you can see this lower, there's essentially an extra story's worth of volume and height and size to that building.
Other questions?
Yeah, I have 2 questions.
Jim?
The tile out in front of the arched wall, is that the same tile that runs throughout the interior of the court?
Show the elevations.
You're talking about in plan view?
Elevation view. There was an elevation.
What page?
Well, it's probably off the other.
What number?
Well, it was on this sheet. Just bringing it forward.
This one here?
Basically, I was talking about this tile that's on this part in the entrance. Does that continue the same tile that's...
Yeah, so they would have a variety. We haven't selected colors on them, but they're all ceramic tile. Yes.
And then the other question, according to the plan view, it looks like these arches are only 6 inches deep. Is that correct?
The plan view is going to be the most correct. That's right.
It said about 6 inches.
Approximately.
Okay.
Jim?
Yep.
Yes, Paul.
The idea or the notion of having stacked auto lifter as your tandem parking, has transportation signed off on that, and city staff has said that that's an acceptable two-car garage?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. Other questions? Okay, no questions? Yep. Sarah?
Did you study having the trash and the recycle enclosure? Have you studied an alternative spot for the trash and recycle enclosure that maybe is more internal down the driveway, maybe even at the end?
Well, we could look at that. One of the things is to get the pickup people to want to come down and get there and get back. So the actual function of it from the provider is usually the issue.
Well, they will come all the way. It's sometimes a little extra, but they will come all the way deep into the property.
So it's a possibility. It's the same size at either end.
Okay.
Can I finish? Quick question there. Just noting what Mr. Sharp was saying on this building versus the third story of yours, looking at these block elevations that we're seeing here. These look almost to be in line. And I'm wondering,
I don't know what his what his datum is that he's using. We believe this to be correct, so I'm not really certain where he's deriving the information.
So your estimation
I have
is
no
that,
as-built of his building, but
Okay.
we believe that this is correct.
that yours is topping out at his parapet height then?
That's right.
Okay. Other questions? No? Comments?
I have a comment, Mr. Chair.
Yes. Dawn.
I think that this proposal is a vast improvement from the previous proposals, in my opinion. I would encourage you to continue working with providing as much light as you possibly can into that light well, and taking on that option that you said that you were willing to pursue that might make it even better than the one that was presenting. I think there was an option for incorporating even more light into the light well than the one proposal.
Well,
I think I think Mr. Sharp might have also had a little bit of concern about some of the windows, or maybe not. Maybe it was just the light well and the light coming in the windows. Just want to make sure. If there is any concern, I encourage you to keep working with them, and I think it's fantastic that that's being done now. And I don't have an issue with the massing per se, but I'm not understanding the incorporation of a Schindler type stylistically approach to the Spanish influence, and it's not reading for me. It's not working for me. I love Schindler's work, and if that's the direction you want to go to lighten up the third story, I would encourage you to go more in that direction through the whole process, through the whole project, as opposed to trying to mix those two, because unless you can convince us otherwise that there's a way to make it work, because right now for me it's not working. But I think something could be done, and I think that you've got a really good start with the massing. I just think it's not quite working together. The arches, and then it looks like there's a roll-up garage door behind the arches on the south elevations. That's one example of where it's not working for me. That's it.
Thanks, Dawn. Others? Comments? Jim?
On what Don was talking about, I think one of the things that's bothering me with what you've shown between the Cinewer and the Gill is that I'd like to possibly see if there's a way that the arches are much more dramatic than 6 inches. And I guess it's the awnings that are bothering me in the cleanliness of looking at what you're proposing, the kind of combination of Cinewer and Gill together. Somehow the awnings seem out of place relating to the smoothness and the cleanness that they were both going after. So if you could look at, if you would still keep the awnings on the outside of the buildings, take a look at that and see, and beef up the arches and what have you. maybe just take off the tile in the front arch too, and it's just thoughts, I don't know, I think that's part of there's too much going on in what you were proposing in the relationship between the cinema and the gill and the Spanish, between not enough depth, awnings, balancing with the top. That's just my comment.
Thanks, Jim. Others, comments?
I share the same opinions that Don was stating, and I think for me there's a lot of elements that show up in the photos that you showed us, but they're sort of used in various degrees on this project. And the lower floor with the arches, but they're not quite. It's not quite a loggia or an arcade, and it's not quite deep enough. And then the top floor is this whole other thing. So I think my comment would be, I think, pick a style and run it through the whole building and really try to be true to it and interpret it and do what you need to do. But I think for me at the moment, I agree that the massing is much better than what we've seen. I appreciate the respecting the light wells for the neighboring building, and I think all that's important. But just in terms of the exterior aesthetic, I think it needs to get a little bit more cohesive and go in one direction and follow it through to the end.
Thanks, Gary. Yes, Gary.
Yeah, I'd say way off that. I agree with all those comments. I was having a lot of problems with the architectural style of this building, and not really getting it of how those styles were incorporated with the proposed set. All of the gill and even the local examples that you had were deeply recessed in. They were all great shadow lines, and this isn't happening with your garages and with your tile and how the woodwork incorporated with it. I was just having a lot of problems. The railings, the awnings, the styling just doesn't work. It goes on and on. I also have a little bit of problem that with how the handicap parking is parked in the front yard setback. Now, I know you have a zero lot line and that's allowed, but I certainly would like it to be a little bit more disguised than it is right now. And I would like you to look into that. And some of the things that do bother me is how some of these how the boxiness of the second story is protruding out above in some areas, and I think that's part of the stylistic that you need to work on how this is going to incorporate. But the sizing, and the light well, and the massing of the building, I'm okay with.
Can I ask for a clarification?
Sure.
The box extending outward. Can you point to me?
Well,
because that happens in various places.
I'm talking about as you're in the motor court, as you're driving out. There's a couple of box courts boxed areas in right there, and I don't know if I think I have a little bit of issues with how that stands out with the rest of the building. And it may be able to be detailed in other ways, or that's just a comment.
Thanks. It might depend on which direction you go with the style.
Absolutely.
Great. Carol?
It's easier if I just point up there. If you could
Sure.
A1, please.
E1?
A1.
A11.
Okay. And I know we're kind of like early to talk about landscaping, so I'm only going to talk about landscape opportunities. So just factor that in as you're developing the plans further. One thing is, I'm always looking at what is the public experience of development from the street. When you're driving and walking, what are you looking at? And I do see some opportunities that aren't shown on here that you might want to consider. One is, what we don't want to see is having the handicap stall and the unloading zone become two parking spots. And it could be possible, and may I just draw it on it just for the sake of Okay, where we could really shorten this a little bit and get a planting area that looks more like this, because that satisfies the requirement for a chair, and yet we could landscape in here, and this could actually get to be something a little bit larger. If, in the same way, this could actually get a little deeper, and if possibly this could be relocated in the back, but not necessarily, but if it could be relocated, this area here then becomes very significant for the screening that's going to be for this long stretch of hardscape. These appear to be deeper than they necessarily have to be, so if these were a little bit shorter, especially these, then we could really get, something like a little bulb out.
Yeah, I think what you run into there is you see these dotted lines that are, these are traffic department requirements.
Okay.
So those are the issues that you run into at that
Okay,
point.
so if that's true, then I would almost follow the line of travel with the planter edges. If that's what you're doing there, and so this just becomes maximum planting opportunity right there. I don't think a fence right here is really necessary. I think that little jog of fence might really interfere with some nice, flow of landscaping on the corner there.
I should point out that the concept here, if you look at the illustration, will have a bit of an arbor here. So one of the things is the side of this building, trying to mitigate the flat blankness of it, was we provided a little arbor right in here, and we want to get something up in here to help screen the flatness of that.
That's what's represented there.
Also, commenting on your comment, where you showed the bulb is one thing, but however, that opportunity, if you see these dotted lines here, may exist more in here.
There
So
you go.
we're looking at that. That actually is what we would plan to do, and we have no idea. We have no desire to put curbing in here either. So these lines show a flush line, and we'd have this is all pervious paving, and we would get as much actually planted in here as we could while respecting the dictates of traffic.
And so it's more important to try to get to maximize the landscaping, especially in this front zone. That is what's more important. My last comment, and I just want to just make sure that Mr. Sharp's comments or concerns were at least looked at, and in his third paragraph, while this proposed project retains acceptable openness to the western atrium, the eastern atrium is severely closed off with 3-story buildings on 2 sides. However, I am asking for further reductions in the building mass surrounding this eastern atrium. And did the board address that concern? Or
Yeah, that's actually what I meant in my comment. I thought it was windows, but it was actually, the comment was to continue to work with the neighbors on the areas that he still had concern with.
Okay, so
it was that area.
So the eastern atrium is yet to be resolved between neighbors and project. That would be my concern.
That would be this one. That's this, right?
That's this one.
Right.
So there were two. He actually proposed the 2 third floor orientations that they have different properties, and one of them actually narrows widens the aperture at the end, and that seems to have some benefit.
So if that's all satisfied, I may have, missed that conversation, but if that's all satisfied, then all right, I just didn't want to have it not in a comment at least.
Yeah, I think.
Okay, let's just finish with the comments, because the whole board has to comment, and then we. Okay, other
and we're
comments?
behind. We're 5 minutes behind already.
Other comments?
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
I'll be the only person who comments about the garage. And even though traffic and transportation has bought off on it, I don't see it as being really working too well, in the sense that, your husband and wife come home, or the 2 partners, or whatever it is, and first person gets in, and they're really going to push the button, and the garage is going to go up, and the next person. It's different than if it's a tandem garage and they're both on the same level, and pulling one car out to get the other car out. A little easier than actually working the lift, the car lift. If transportation bought off on it and they're 100% behind it, I just look at it going, I don't know if, I haven't seen that application in our city yet, so I have reservations. The other thing, because this isn't a podium garage situation where you're dealing with a flat deck, you can jump around. I would say have like many different levels within the second floor, so you could have a semi-split level in the sense that if you really wanted to have the 10'6" garage height, or 10, for that lift, you can still have a 9-foot here, and you can separate that by 18 inches, and then you start having more playfulness on the outside of your massing instead of having everything on the second floor, 11'6" floor to floor. You can jump around a little bit, or if you end up having a traditional 2-car garage on the main level, have an 8-foot ceiling, have a 10-foot next to it, then you can do different things with the ceilings. But I question whether or not the 2 cars will be parking in that garage on a regular basis with an auto lift. And maybe that's not our purview, but impact on the neighborhood would be.
Point of
clarification.
I want a clarification if I can. So I heard that too is you don't like the lifts, but if the lifts are there, we should consider altering the floor heights. Varying floor heights.
In either way, if you decide to have no lift and you have an 8-foot plate in the garage because that's all you need for your ceilings, and you still want to have a 10-foot ceiling for your commercial, there's no reason why you should have a 10-foot ceiling in a traditional 2-car garage because you're increasing the height unnecessarily. So maybe that's 2 comments. One comment is I question the lift. The second comment is because you don't have a podium situation where you're pouring a big slab of concrete and building everything above that, you can jump around your second floor and have sort of a semi-split level.
Okay. Thanks, Paul. Others? Last comments? For me, my comment would be I agree with most of the board's comments in terms of the jumping of styling. I'm not so wedded to the fact that you should really pick one style and go with it. But I think that the elements that you use together, however you use them together, should really work in harmony. So it could be that you end up with a style that is not purely one of the styles, but however those elements that you put together in the building should really work in harmony. And think what I heard from the rest of the board is that the pieces that you're putting together are just not comfortable with each other just yet. And then that's what you have to work on. The other is I agree with Carol on the landscaping, especially where I see along one side we have this long stretch of very symmetrical type of plantings here. So some sort of maximization of a landscaping area that could probably give us a bulb out here or there to kind of make that feeling down this long corridor feel a little less straight and directional would be really good. I think that the project overall really is going in a good direction. The massing is very good. I like option B on the 3rd floor, which is the one that creates a better aperture. So it's a shorter distance to the light, and so I like that, the B. So I think that most of the things we have to address here is landscaping. We asked for maybe an alternative for trash enclosures, maybe, to see where that could possibly be. Looking at the building elements that you're incorporating and try to have them work a little bit more in harmony. Some of the depths that you're using for the windows, a little bit more depth would be appreciated. Am I missing anything? The garage situation. Personally, I'm not as opposed to it. I have seen this type of garage used not in Santa Barbara, but in Europe, many places, and people seem to be able to use them quite well. And I think it's probably something that's going to happen as the city gets more and more dense and space becomes more and more valuable. But again, I think that the way Paul phrased it is that if you do go this way, there may be other opportunities that you can use to maximize creatively. So I agree with him on that. Okay. Would like to make a motion and motion. Okay.
Yeah, the motion would be
indefinite comments.
Continuance.
Yeah, indefinite continuance back to the board with these comments. Would you like me to craft something then? Okay, so indefinite continuance back to the board with the following comments. The board is very appreciative of the change in direction of the project. We think that the direction in mass, bulk, and scale is very positive. We'd like you to continue in that light and look for whatever future opportunities there may be to this design. The board likes well, I wouldn't say the whole board, straw vote on who likes option A or option B of the third floor at the opposing light well. No comment? Okay. Either one? Okay, the board is not taking a position on the option A or B. Personally, I prefer option, so one member favors option B, which maximizes the light to the neighbor's light well. But we would encourage you, sorry Kathleen, I'm just running on here. Let me just make it in points. Maximize the lighting opportunities to the light wells to the neighbor to the north. Integrate the design elements that you choose to work in better harmony with each other. Maximize the relief that you create at building openings, doors, windows, etc. Study the garage proposal for the stacked garage and other opportunities it may allow to better the design. On landscape, the first item on landscape would be maximize the landscaping options by reviewing your turning radiuses to see where opportunities may come. Study the location of your trash enclosure for maybe a possible better location. Study the landscaping especially along the sidewalk area, where it, for a good pedestrian interaction. Am I missing anything?
If you could strike that last one. He's not presenting a landscape plan. There's no landscaping to review. So that last comment, I don't think is
okay, so we look forward to a good landscape. Well, we look forward to when you bring back the landscape plan.
Provide a landscape plan.
Provide a landscape plan. Anything else on landscape? Okay, am I missing anything?
Chair,
yes, Chris.
The linearity, heading down that south property line.
Yes.
And I'd say opportunities for bulb outs. I think we kind of missed that. You did?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry.
So, in your landscape plan, you'd take that into consideration. Okay. Just quick question for the board. I thought I heard a comment about the material on the third floor. Was there any concerns about that? Everybody?
It was part of my comment about just stylistically working everything together and making all the materials work.
Okay, so the last item on the architecture would be the board looks forward to your next proposal that would give us some more information on the finishes, the proposed finishes. Thank you. No, we need a first and a second.
I'll make the motion.
So Dawn will make the motion. And
one under discussion item, I just wanted to make sure that we got in the motion the part about getting some cohesion into the style of the architectural style. Okay.
Yes. So all those in favor say aye. Aye. Against? Motion carries. Thank you. Thanks.
No problem.
Thanks. Great directional change.
You can take these two.
Thank you.
Thanks. If you could state your name for the record.
My name is Mackey, Mackey, and that's my first name. The last name is Deasy, Deasy, and I'm with Callison Architecture in Santa Monica. Thank you. It was a beautiful drive up today. Yeah.
Okay, I think everyone familiar with the location. Okay, you can go ahead. I think we're all familiar with that location.
Okay. I want to make this as brief as possible. I'll assume that you all know the site, and
Yes.
I believe that you may have seen a separate application preliminarily at this location a
We
couple
saw
of years
another
ago.
proposal, yeah.
Yes. Okay. The proposal is for a branch bank. It's about 3,600 square feet. The building's located on the corner of La Cumbre and La Cumbre, and it is architecturally, it's a fairly, what we feel is a fairly simple interpretation of Santa Barbara's, what we call the Santa Barbara experience architecturally. It's a Spanish mission style with tile elements on the exterior and plaster arches. I think they're fairly, at least attempting to be as consistent as possible. It's a difficult site to site plan because of the setback requirements and the meeting all of the technical requirements of the site. It was a challenge, but we've, I think, successfully met the technical requirements, and at this point we're hoping to get guidance from you as far as where we are headed with the architecture, so we can keep moving.
Okay. Do you want to
Yeah, let
present
me
it? Or?
explain the. Is this best to work off this drawing?
Yes.
See that?
Yes.
Okay. Main entrance to the sites, there are two. One off of La Cumbre Lane.
Yes.
The other comes off La Cumbre
Road.
On this La Cumbre Road on this end. Actually, we are using, in essence, although we're replacing a lot, those are two ingress points that exist at this time. The existing site, as you know, was a gas station. So these are two driveway locations that are, we're not creating new locations, we're just rebuilding them. The parking, and I think that works well for for purposes of site planning. Really, there aren't too many alternatives here. If you want to park in the back, the building goes to the front. The building mass is pushed as far forward as we can get it within, staying within the setback tolerances. And most of the design of this building, as far as the site plan is concerned, were derived from those setback requirements that we really had to adhere to. I mean, you can see those exactly. That, and then when you start laying out parking, of course, it sort of dictates a rectilinear form at the back. So it's really, the site has been a strong derivative force on the forms.
So this is both in and out?
No, this is, well, yes, this would be an entrance and right turn only going out. That's correct.
Right. And this is in and out?
Yes.
Okay. Right turn only. Okay, go ahead.
And I guess the other significant features, besides the new sidewalk landscaping, there's a trash enclosure located at the back of the property, which should provide for the trash and recycling requirements of the city, and also the bicycle parking area is located in this niche here.
Okay.
So that's about, I think as far as the landscape is concerned, there's a landscaping plan attached, but you can see from that plan that we're trying to preserve some existing trees on the property. There are 3 significant trees at the back on the north end, and then one tree along La Cumbre Road, and there are 2 existing palms that are on La Cumbre Lane.
Okay.
The rest of the landscaping is new.
Okay. We're not too interested in the operations.
Yeah, the floor plan is the floor plan.
Yeah.
Okay. The 4 elevations provided. The north elevation, which is actually the main entrance from the north side.
This faces the parking lot, or?
Yes, it is.
So that's this one here?
That's correct.
Okay.
So you'll see the main entrance door here. One of the things that is important to understand about the concept of Wachovia's branches is that we try to maintain a two-story space, two-story volume for the public area of the building. So on the interior, there's that's why you see this element here that's fairly tall. That's also reflected in the other elevations that we get to, and there's a clear story element at the back, set back from the front of the building that provides natural light, so that the traditional banking lobby is lit with as much natural light as possible.
Okay.
The materials are, I think we've submitted some material boards. I think they're here somewhere, but the principal materials are plaster.
Plaster.
There are two plaster finishes with a reveal at, I think it's about 36 to 42 inches high. There are tile features in these alcoves that are, or recesses for the windows, and those materials have been submitted for samples. The other principal elements are...
Michelle, do we have a sample board?
There should be some color attachments somewhere. I have the black and white ones with me, but I don't have the color. No. Okay. There we go. Thank you. This is a color copy, so I won't guarantee you that it's an absolutely accurate representation, but the colors are sort of traditional.
Is this stucco here?
That's correct.
And where's this one?
This is the plaster above there. So we really have two tones of
this is the wainscot,
plaster.
and that's the one
correct.
above, and then you have the reveal in the middle. And
That's
this
correct.
tile is in here,
Yes, that's the wall tile.
also here.
That's wall tile there, the squares are the wall tile, and then we have... That's a decorative tile that appears in locations like...
And horizontal here. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And you're proposing a one-piece?
One-piece
mission
tile, roofing tile, yes.
And this is aluminum. Is it aluminum framing?
No, that's actually plaster. These are some metal canopies. I think that we have two. One here above the ATM.
Okay.
We also have some wood trellis materials that are shown on the other elevations.
Okay. Here's a wood trellis.
That's right.
And this is facing La Cumbre Lane.
That's correct.
Okay.
And the east elevation facing La Cumbre Road.
Okay. 26 feet high. Do we have you have any relationship in height between this building and the existing building over here?
We do from the photographs. The massing is probably very similar. I don't think these buildings are really not taller. If you look at the photographs,
It's a one-story building, the AT&T next door.
Right. Just wondered how this how that height relates to it. Because this is 26, this is 27 feet tall.
the photos of the buildings that are well, in photo number 5, which is in your packets, this picture here, that is the tallest element of the building down La Cumbre Lane. Our site, we're looking down from our site here. So I think that is probably it's probably similar in height. It's not, I don't know the exact height of the sloped roof that's on top of that, but it's probably not too much different. Within, I would say within the scale, good scale relationship.
Okay, you wanna anything else? We have so that's.
You have the elevations.
Okay. This is facing La Cumbre Road.
Yes.
It's facing the back. Okay. Wood trellis. That's the same brick tile that you.
It is.
Okay. Landscape. This is your landscape.
The landscape plan is really intended to fulfill the requirements of the city. As I explained, the trees that existing trees to remain are here, and then we're adding more of the same palms along along Kumba Lane.
Okay. Mayapuram.
Mayapuram is the ground cover here.
Festuca.
That's,
Okay.
I can't read that upside down, I'm sorry.
Okay. All right, we'll let landscape looking across. Okay. Open it for public comment. Michelle?
We have one letter of opposition from Ms. Paula Westbury, and I think
Thank you. We have one speaker, Deborah Corsada. Sorry. Yes.
Deborah Cavanda.
Cavanda.
And I'm a tenant next door in Craig and Auto Parts.
Okay.
But been there since 1964. We have 4 units there, so we have the largest unit there. So I was wondering about the pine trees. It sounds like they're going to stay. That's good. And the height, I'd really prefer if the height wasn't any higher than the present building. I heard you guys talk about that. He didn't really understand if it was or not.
I guess we'll get into that. We're not
Okay, that's
sure.
fine. It was just a concern I had. And the parking spaces, but it looks fine. My thought is, this is the first time I've seen the proposal, and my thought was, instead of, just an idea, what if you put the building where the parking spaces are and had the parking spaces up front? It's just a thought I had, because it looks to me in Santa Barbara, when you start putting the buildings right on the edge, kind of going up like San Francisco a little bit with the parking lot in the back. Just a thought I had. But the parking spaces, it looks like you're going to have plenty. And Wachovia now is owned by Wells Fargo. So are they really going to be a bank? I don't know. It's just a thought I had. Let's see.
We all have that concern.
Yeah, I know. Okay, and we in that area we hear a lot of bank alarms go off. So I just wanted to know security-wise if it was the best for that area. And that's all I had to say.
Thanks very much.
So I was just giving some comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, bring it back to the board for questions.
I have one.
Yes, Dawn.
It's kind of the elephant in the room. Is there some reason why you didn't put the entry in the arches?
Well, yes. You know, that's an interesting question. We deal with a lot of banking sites that we deal with that are corner locations like this one. Customers typically want to get out of their cars and into the building, and I mean, this is admittedly sort of on the fringe of the real pedestrian environment. And we know, I'm appreciative of what you're trying to do with pedestrian activity on the street, but it's the main driver is convenience to parking. If we tried doing what this woman was saying about planning the property the other way, putting the parking in the front, and what it does is it puts driveways very close to the corner, which then become a traffic.
Yeah, I don't think we're
hazard.
asking you to do that.
I don't think we don't need to have that discussion, but the main reason is convenience of the customer, and
But it's an all-new structure, right? It's an all-new structure.
All new.
Okay.
The other reason is, and it's a security problem. Most banks do not like to have more than one entrance, one active entrance. We do have a door over here, but it's an exit door, it's emergency exit only. And the reason for that is the security system.
I don't mean to cut you off, but I guess the question more is that is there a reason why you would create the arch and then not have an opening in the arch?
Oh, you mean any opening at all?
Yeah, we're not talking about where you want an opening on it, but why would you create the architecture like that and then not use it like it's the way it's?
I think you've hit a point that is a possible alteration of the design. I can see, in looking at the plan myself, that I would like to explore the idea of having some at least glazing, not a door, but glazing in that main tower, because it does identify itself that way.
Thanks. Another question?
Nope.
Questions? Comments?
I think he already made his own comment. The first one is one that we were all going to make.
I think so.
One's got to be, in my opinion, and I think everybody else, it's got to be using the arch or losing the arch.
Okay, other comments? Yes, Carol.
This location is a very significant node between two major shopping centers, La Cumbre and Five Points. And people walk here. This is a pedestrian corridor. It's a pedestrian connection. And I have to take issue to your comment on that it's convenient for the user to use their car and go in the back and use, like, basically the back door as the front door. That's not this area. And I think, maybe it's because you're out of town and you're getting your information elsewhere. This is not how this area is used. People do walk, and they do, I would probably say a good percentage of your users will be wanting to use the front door at the corner or where a regular front door to a building would exist. I really have to take issue with the site plan. I don't think you're celebrating the corner. I think you're sticking a corner of the building in where the major entry really ought to be. The significant visual and functional corner is not being utilized. It almost looks like the side of a building or the side of a site. And because there's four areas, there's two streets with a stoplight coming together, and that stoplight is good for pedestrians because it's controlling and making it safe, so it's encouraging people to come here. I think this is not addressing what this site, the potential of this site is. Now, with that said, I don't really have an issue with the site plan of how the parking is laid out. The good things is the trash is in the corner away from public view. That's a good. The good is that your parking requirements allows you to have a very minimal parking, so you could get your street trees, not your street, but your parking lot trees in that aren't shown on the landscape plan, but I'm sure your landscape architect will remember that those fingers are for trees. And you have a lot of landscaping next to the sidewalk, which is between the sidewalk and the building. You've really maximized the landscaping. So all of that is all really, really good, and you're preserving existing trees, you're working around that. All of that is really good. But this corner, the corner of the architecture is, to me, something that has to be restudied and really understand that visually, this corner has to really act like a corner. And I would encourage you to address where there are people that are. This is walking. This is not not necessarily an auto-driven corner.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Carol. Others?
Coming a couple little things to add at the end. I was going to wait till everybody. Just a couple little things. I think that aside from the bigger issue of how you deal with that corner, is that the detailing is going to be important, especially the detailing at your cornice. It looks like you have a 45-degree angle that probably is just drawn that way because you haven't figured out what your detail's going to be, whether it's a crown or something simpler. But in particular, it looks like there's some plaster bands around the windows, and I'm not a big fan of plaster bands around windows, and I think the board would probably agree with me that the board prefers a more clean or contemporary, or not contemporary, but a cleaner, traditional bullnose corner instead of adding a plaster band around there. But this is just conceptual, but I thought I'd throw that in.
Okay, thanks. Gary, I'm sure you have something to say.
Gary always has something.
Yep.
Yes, Mr. Chair, there's a couple of things. One, I thought I heard him say one-piece tile.
Yes, he
did. I certainly wouldn't be in favor of that. The other thing is how it's not only addressing La Cumbre, but La Cumbre Lane, it's not addressing that at all. There's no windows, and there's a couple of solid equipment utility doors or emergency access doors, and I don't believe it addresses the street well on that side as well. And one of the things that was so nice about, now I hate to say this, that was so nice about this gas station at one time is, even growing up as a young kid, they had that fountain in the front there, and they had that water feature. And I actually like that water feature that was there, and if a water feature could be incorporated, would be nice. But I would agree with the other comments that the board members made on top of that.
Okay. Anything, Keith? No?
Mr. Chair, a few additional landscape comments.
Go ahead.
Let's see, starting with the trees, the crepe myrtle and the melaleuca both have issues with sort of uplifting concrete, and I think that we should explore options for those two trees. And then also, as far as the ground covers go, we have Myoporum scheduled for the planter strips, and I think that the parkway, those are going to get too big. It's going to be a maintenance nightmare. And they're going to end up getting chopped into little hedges, and I think we should explore an alternative plant species there also. And also in front, around the whole corner, the festuca that's shown, it's a huge area of festuca, and I think we could extend the planting bed out a little further, not quite use so much grass, and that's between the sidewalk and the building. I think that was it.
Okay, thanks. I want to say I agree with all the comments that we've heard, and I think that some of the main comments, just to run by, I think that your site needs to have a pedestrian strength to it, a component, whereas having the main entry to the back and no entry at all from the pedestrian walkways is not a way to go on the site. I think that you need to look at that. I think the architecture itself needs to be true. We would be looking for, if you create arched openings and stuff like that they become true arch openings, and they do what traditionally is done with those openings. Again, the same thing can be said of, I think, the styling of the cornice at the top, which I think really is the style of the building itself. I think it lacks a little bit of sensitivity, and I think that we could be, I'd like you to look at that in terms, it seems very raw to me. I don't know how best to explain it, but that's, I think that the detailing could be a little bit more sensitive. We definitely would not support the one-piece clay tile on the roof.
But clay tile's okay.
But clay tile is fine.
Just to clarify that.
Yeah.
There must be an alternative here someplace.
Yeah. Let's see. I would like to see a sort of height relationship. If you can bring back some information on the height of your building as it relates to the building to the east, which is the AT&T rental building, and maybe the building also to the north. Just get a feel, and possibly the building that exists right near now, which would be a good indication for those of us who know that area already. Okay, and I agree with the landscape items that the landscape architects had. So I'd love to have a motion. And this would be comments only, return to full board. The project still requires environmental assessment and development plan approval. So comments only. We really want him to do what he needs to do and not fool him. He has a long way to go.
Perfectly clear.
I want to be perfectly clear because I only want to come back one more time.
There you go. There you go. Okay.
I'll say one more item.
Okay.
Okay.
When you decide to make it either historically traditional Spanish architecture, or if you decide to go into a contemporary flair of Spanish architecture, you got to stay with more rustic materials or chunky materials. And it looks like your trellis had 2x12s on top of a 4x material. Mm-hmm. Those things are 4xs and 6xs and even 8xs. And you drive around town and take a look at other things. The architecture is not 100% Spanish, I love you around here. There is some modern flair and there's some more contemporary, but they all have a husky rusticness to it, historical authenticity. Mm-hmm. So like even the two-piece Spanish tile roof, things of that nature.
I think what you're saying is, what he said is truth and the design, and that's, I think,
But I want to be clear,
that's what I'm
because
hearing.
you're coming back here one more time.
Okay, you're going to make a motion, Paul?
It's a real simplistic motion that the applicant redesign the site layout to focus on pedestrian interaction with the building. And the building address the corner to the public being in the automobile as well as the pedestrian, and have a public presence to the front of the property as well as the way the building works to the parking lot. The applicant to study the architectural detailing to be authentic in its architectural detailing, and our applicant to look for opportunities to expand on the landscape being provided on the site, in particular to provide trees in the fingers that are in the parking lot, the finger planters in the parking lot.
Can I just add, or can I just tell you, the additional landscape that should go in the motion is restudy the use of the crepe myrtle and the melaleuca trees, restudy the myoporum in the parkway, add additional landscaping in the festuca beds,
What, do we have a second? Jim, second. Under discussion, go ahead.
No, I want to make sure that I covered everybody's comments.
Under discussion, could you add something about bringing back the information on the height?
Applicant to bring additional information on the adjoining buildings and their heights, as well as the height of the existing gas station to be removed.
Thanks. Okay, all those in favor? Say aye. Aye. Against? Motion carries. Jim is. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Maki DZ. What a name. Yeah.
Two copies. You can take those two back. We only need one.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, thank you.
But that's the one down there?
Yeah, we have one.
There you go. Thanks. So, number 5, 1405 Harborview Drive.
Actually, we should keep that.
We keep this one too. Yeah. Thank you. That's good. Hi.
Early.
Yeah. Thanks.
Let's end the resolution.
Okay. So this project has to comply with Staff Hearing Officer Resolution number 09308. Just state your name for the record, and then I'll just follow up with this.
My name's Tom Jacobs. I'm the architect, and I have here with me Javier Villarreal, who is the owner.
Thanks very much. So we've seen this, this has gone through Staff Hearing Officer, and under the design review items, there are 4 items. Usable common open space. Adequate usable common open space shall be provided in a location accessible by all units within the development. Minimize visual effects of the paving. Textured or colored pavement shall be used in paved areas of the project to minimize the visual effect of the expanse of paving. Create a pedestrian environment and provide access for all users. And 3, screen check the check valve and the backflow valve for the fire sprinkler system or irrigation system, provided in a location screened from public view. And 4, permeable paving. Incorporate a permeable paving system for the project driveways that will allow a portion of the paved area runoff to percolate into the ground, except as necessary to meet fire department weight requirements. It must be approved by Public Works. Okay. So we also have a 13-point motion. And is this something that you want to address one by one, or do you want me to read them all and then you'll address them?
No, don't read them all.
Okay.
No, actually, the project has only changed very slightly from the one that was brought before you and received good comments last time. The shapes of the driveways have been articulated a little bit to minimize their width.
Okay, all right.
But you
so I'll tell you what
addressed-
we'll do. You addressed all 13.
All 13 of these comments?
I don't believe that any of them required any action.
Okay, I think what we'll do is I will read them out, and then maybe you can show us how you address them. Let's just get familiar with the project first, and when we go over the items one by one, that will kind of refresh your memory, and
No
you
problem.
can tell us what we've got. Okay, so we are at
It's the corner
1405
of
Harborview Drive. Where is
Old
this?
Coast Highway and Harborview. It fronts on the corner that is opposite Montecito Country Club and catty corner to the tennis courts.
Tennis courts. So you're right on this corner here?
Yes.
On this Old Coast Road?
Yes.
And that road coming down here?
Right.
Okay. And so this is the one or two properties?
One.
One here, okay.
Yeah.
And it's a duplex or looks
Yeah,
like
detached duplex.
detached duplex. Okay, so this is Old Coast Highway. This is Harborview coming down here.
Actually, you can see from the photographs towards the end of the drawing package the immediate environment.
Okay. I might take a little longer as I have not seen this project before, but
So, as you can see along Old Coast Highway,
Yes.
there are there are quite a number of multi-unit developments.
apartment building. That would be these here, Twin Pines.
Yes.
Gala. Okay, this is your project right here. This is your property right here, subject property. Okay.
Correct.
So right next door is a two-story apartment complex, followed by another two-story apartment complex, followed by another one. Is that
That's
it?
correct. 1, 2, 3. And
Okay.
actually, on.
And then going up the side here, what's this?
This is a duplex development.
Is that? Can you point that out on here? Is this the street here? Look,
It's
Harborview,
Panorama
Panorama B, right?
Yes.
So you're up to
it's
here.
This little section.
And this is a duplex then? What we're looking at here? A one-story duplex?
Yes.
Okay. And that's across the street to the tennis courts.
Right.
Okay. So we have location, we have site plan.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I actually went through the minutes of the last meeting, and out of the 13, 4 of them were
Not issued.
positive comments in nature, but there were quite a few that would have required at least some action.
Okay, you want to
So
call
you
them
have a
out?
copy of these? You're looking at me like you've never seen these before, Tom.
I don't believe I've got 14 comments, but
Okay. Well, maybe we could just go through.
Let's go through the
these.
4 that you think need to be addressed.
Of hearing the applicant's presentation. That gives me a lot of understanding of the project. So he
Okay,
probably
you haven't
has,
seen it before?
I don't think so. So
Okay.
he has up to 10 minutes. I'd like that time to be used.
Right.
All right.
We're on the board.
You want to go ahead then and make your
Absolutely.
refresh the board.
Okay. These are two detached single-family structures. The garages have been placed in such a way as to enable the common open area, which is in the center of the property, to nestle within the two structures. This also allowed for the driveways and the entrances off of Harbor View to be separated as far as possible. The owners are two brothers, and the common open area is almost like a family room yard. The structures are quite simple. They are two-story with a roof deck, which allows for, since the structures are quite modest, it allows for additional living space. And in a what you might call somewhat whimsical style. The building immediately adjacent is a two-story apartment complex. Again, on the other side to the north is another duplex. The site itself is impacted by flood zone conditions, and therefore the structure to the north has been needed to be raised and filled somewhat in order to meet that. The project also was required to pass the requirements based on open space sound requirements because of the adjacency of the freeway. And by splitting the two units and kind of harboring the open space in between them, we were able to achieve this without having any exterior walls. Other than that, I think that's really it, my presentation.
I just okay. Just after opening up, seeing no one from the public, do we have a letter?
Yeah, we have a letter from Ms. Paula Westbury.
Okay, thanks.
No, in opposition.
Okay. And also seeing no one from the public, I will close that portion of the agenda, bring it back to the board for questions.
Actually, Mr. Chair, if we can have Don quickly go through the items that need to go through the items to refresh our memory that we had on the
I
motion.
did it quietly first. Didn't work. The first one was, I'll just read the ones that required action.
In addition,
the ones that didn't require any action.
I'd like to hear the motion.
Okay. Number one, the mod required for the pop-outs is technical in nature, and the second-story location does not prohibit the use of the 1,250 square foot of open space. Number two, the applicant is to verify the heights as required for natural grade per zoning ordinance. The board finds that the project does not appear too large in size, bulk, and scale. Number three, the applicant is to study window proportions, locations, styles, and variety of uses on the east and other elevations. The board members find the use whimsical and playful. So you studied the proportions, I presume.
I did study them.
And what you're presenting today, why don't we just turn to the elevations?
And that was it? That was the whole thing?
No, that's not it.
Go on.
That was the first one that required an action. So study the window proportions, locations, styles, and variety of uses on the east and other elevations. There wasn't anything derogatory about the comment, though, that was made. Number four, the board understands and appreciates the raising of the property and the stone veneer to cover the wall since it is in a flood zone. Number five, some board members commented that the south elevation of Unit 1 needs more design character as it faces Old Coast Highway. So, where's the south elevation of Unit 1? Did you change anything there, Tom?
No, the one at grade, the elevation is the rear of the garage, and the other is the bed wall. And so we have high windows. The main vistas from the room look out towards the golf course. So it seemed like it wouldn't be, at least my choice, to increase visibility to Old Coast Highway.
Okay. Number six was study the master bedroom balconies as they appear to be cantilevered a bit too far.
There did not require modifications and were adjusted minutely to meet those requirements.
Where are those balconies?
Right here.
How far out do they come out?
They're 2 feet beyond the setback.
And they were, where were they, what were they before?
Inches different.
Just like 2 feet, 1 inch?
Something like that, yeah. It was very minor.
Okay. Number 7 was the rear elevation garage of Unit 1 is to match the Unit 2 garage by eliminating the recessed pop-outs.
That was accomplished.
That was done? Okay. Number 8, some board members prefer that the units have a less mirrored image. Some board members are concerned that some windows are too large in the stairways and other locations.
Right. The stairwell window is kind of a, I guess you'd call it a somewhat grand gesture, giving the overall facade a different proportion, and was seen as a kind of a enjoyable aspect of the design in the process of getting from the first story up to the roof deck.
One layer, the traditional top layer, and then variety.
That comment was some board members prefer that the units have a less mirrored image. Did you?
They're not really mirrored. The two ends are handled differently, and in response to stepping down at the edges of the property, one has a hip roof, one has a gable roof. It's a duplex. They're two brothers. It seemed appropriate to treat them very similarly.
Okay. Number 9, the project appears appropriate for the neighborhood and is nicely articulated. Number 10, some board members are concerned that the roof level stair element may be adding unnecessary height. Applicant to study mitigation of that.
The area to get up to the stair is at the minimal head height and is set within the kind of footprint of the building, and as you can see from the elevations or the perspective sketches, is not really visible from most views.
Okay. Provide a landscape plan.
Landscape plan has been provided. Carol reviewed it at a previous meeting when we needed to get it reviewed prior to our staff hearing officer, and she requested that 3 street trees be added to it, and those are on the plan.
Okay. Number 12, I'm just going to run through these and then we can make our comments. Number 12, provide information about existing and proposed retaining walls and proposed landscaping for the west elevation.
The existing retaining wall is to remain, and let's look at the landscape plan.
Could you repeat what about the retaining walls? What was it phrased?
Provide information about existing and proposed retaining walls and provide and proposed landscaping for the west elevation.
You can see the screening in the main open yard area. I'm sure we can add some screening vines along the rear of it. It's an existing approximately 30-inch CMU retaining wall with a wood fence above it.
Are there any other retaining walls on the property?
It runs around the corner.
It's 30 inches high and runs around all 3 sides.
Yeah, and then with the fence above it.
And how high is the fence again?
Between, well, the total height is from 6 to 8 feet.
The total height, okay.
And that's an existing fence and retaining wall.
Existing fence and retaining wall, okay.
Yes.
Number 13, the last one, was verify and show on the site plan locations of existing neighbors and the proximity of windows and outdoor spaces.
Those have been shown.
Huh?
Those have been shown.
Okay. Do you want to take a look at that?
So this is the adjacent structure. It's 2 stories, and this is 1 story, and the outdoor area in either case are side yards, and
this area here?
This is a parking area.
And over here.
This is parking and access to the garage. This is basically the garage corner of that structure.
And the windows
No windows there.
on either elevation of either building.
These are kind of bathroom and bedroom windows upstairs.
Bedroom windows?
It's these here.
This is where's that?
This is it here. So the two-story apartment building would be right here.
Yeah.
And then this would be their parking lot. And then facing the neighbor over there is this one. This elevation.
I think the comment was to show where the windows are of the adjacent structures and how that relates to the windows of your structure.
To this one here.
The multiple unit dwelling has a modulated system of bedrooms. There's I think 4 units up there, and so they just kind of go down the row. They're not specifically related. There's 4 two-story units, and the upstairs bedrooms and bathrooms have their rear windows looking out in that direction.
I'm confused. Am I the only one that's confused?
No, you're not. Not
Okay.
the only one. Just,
This structure is a multi-unit, and they're up and down units. So that the upstairs are bedrooms, and they have bedrooms and bathrooms with very small windows that look onto this property. And
so bedrooms and bath. I guess what we're looking for is this. You have 2 big windows here, and what does that look out on relationship-wise right across the property line there?
well, it looks right at the building, and there are, I guess,
Is it a window? Is
4
it somebody
small
else?
windows and 4 larger windows that.
That's what we're asking about. Is are there large windows opposing large windows? That's what the
Yeah.
comment means.
Is there a privacy issue? You know, where are those windows on the other building? Do you know?
There's windows, marching down there. I don't think that particular window is facing any other particular window, but it's a wall of building.
The applicant just didn't address that comment in the minutes. That's all that happened. So they're not shown on the plans like they were requested.
That's all the comments.
Okay. Questions, comments?
Question.
Questions.
Before. So I apologize. Okay, does the board, so you're saying, and I don't doubt, that I saw this landscape plan and okay, that's all. That's all.
Green light. So my comments were to add the street trees, but I saw this landscape plan as
About 6 weeks ago, yes.
6 weeks ago. All right, well, let me just ask the board a question, and it's in a form of a question, so please don't get excited. But is the board comfortable with having our open space, regardless whether this is owned by 2 relatives or not, by our open space as being a shared open space, opposed to, as we always see in these projects, where we try to show clear outlines of private space? Is the board all comfortable with how this is shown?
I can jump in.
Paul, go right ahead.
I would say that right now it's one parcel of land with duplexes on it, and the way it's being used by the 2 brothers. If it ever changes, there could be a fence that's put up and divides it into 2 halves, so your dog and my dog don't argue. But at this point, that's not the way it's being designed, and I don't have a problem because that fencing and the separation can always be added at a later date.
Okay.
Dividing the common space into 2 equal halves.
Okay, and so that's your content. And everybody sees that the same?
I think
or?
it's enough
okay. So
property
that's,
there to
okay.
divide.
I just wanted to just not,
By the way, the 1250 is a requirement for the zone.
Certain.
But we should be shown somewhere in here that there's private outdoor living space as a separate. It's just not called out.
It's not called out. So
But this is required by the code. by the zoning code for
Okay.
that zone.
Okay. Okay, that was my only question, Mr. Chair. That was
Thanks,
it.
Carol. Others? Questions?
My question for the applicant, you're wanting to get preliminary approval today on this set of plans? Okay. And the architectural comments that we had from the previous minutes were addressed by you, and so this set of plans is different than the set of plans that we looked at back before?
As I said in the beginning, it's the changes are very slight. I didn't perceive any required or requested changes. The comments were
Did you make any changes to the windows and the styling? We were pretty soft in the sense that we asked you to study the windows, and you studied and you were fine with the way they were.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I may study them again, but they would not change, grossly from what we see. Yeah.
Other questions? Gary, any question? No? Okay, comments? Yes, Carol.
I'd like to see in record that due to economics that the stone veneer that has been shown and promised on these retaining walls is something that is non-negotiable to be eliminated in the future.
Yeah, I mean, whatever we approve would be...
If you don't mind me jumping on there, I would echo that gets put in the minutes, because I have my own personal projects that come through once they're under construction, that the owners come to me and want to remove the stone. And it's a discussion for you to put on this project if you think that is that important. But I've run into that problem with my own personal projects.
So the stone veneer is very important to the aesthetics of the project and needs to be retained at all costs.
Mr. Chairman, I have a couple of comments relating to the questions that were proposed. One being the stairwell window, which I still believe has not been addressed and is out of scale, I believe, to the overall project. And I think there was another one on there that there was a sameness going on between the two units, and changing one roof line to another roof line doesn't somehow or other tell me that the two units are that much different.
Okay. Could you just explain the staircase item?
I thought there was I don't know what number it was.
There is. It said some board members prefer that the units have a less mirrored image. And then on the same comment, some board members are concerned that some windows are too large at the stairways and other locations.
Right.
That's the same comment.
Well, same comment.
Yeah.
Even though there are two issues.
Okay. All right. Other comments?
I have a few landscape comments.
Yes, Chris.
Well, I guess a quick question. Why is this area adjacent to the road just with mulch? Is there a reason it wasn't planted? Or proposed planting?
There are no sidewalks there, and in order to allow modest walking through there, I think it was just decided to leave it in mulch.
Okay.
Not develop it.
So I guess my comment would be I'd like to see that as planted. It is a pretty prominent corner here, and if that's all just mulch, it's going to look unfinished, I think. So I think I would encourage you to study adding planting adjacent to both roadways, Harborview Drive and Calle Real there. The other comment was I would encourage you to restudy this corner here. I'm a little bothered by the fact that the garage is so close to the street on the corner, and so I think this lawn could be eliminated, and we could, in order to hide that a little bit, we could bring this tree back a little and start to do some layered planting so we start to hide that a little bit. So I would encourage you to restudy the planting in the corner.
Okay, thanks, Chris. Any others? Okay, I'll just jump in if others are... Go quickly.
I'm still having a little trouble with some of the window placements and scales. And I'm also concerned about the two units, the rear of the units, the west elevation opening onto the bedrooms of the unit behind. The only other thing I think at this point is the balconies at the master seem to cantilever over the garage quite a bit, and they're not really articulated. They're more just kind of planted on, and I think that could be definitely studied and reworked a bit to, really fit a little bit more with the architecture. I think they're just kind of stuck on the building.
It's a good comment. Thanks, Clay. Any others? Just if others are thinking, my one thought on this, I hadn't seen it before and I didn't comment, so I kind of feel a little reluctant to jump in, but I certainly think that this south elevation facing Old Coast Highway really needs work. I think that, while there may be other apartment buildings that were built in an earlier era, I think that this faces a major arterial way, and especially for those private homes that go up the side street here. And I think that architecturally, we need to deal with this in a more public sensitivity, both to the pedestrian and to the passing motorist. And I think that ties in with Chris's comments on the planting at this corner, that they'd be very sensitive to that aspect. That's my feeling. I agree with Clay, just trying to find out what's the proximity of these windows, because this is a big, large expanse right here, the three of them together, and they're not a small pair or two little pairs. I agree with the balcony overhangs, as they seem to, they extend out 4 feet and they seem very, very shallow. It just looks like there's too much weight hanging out there, too much moment without bracketing or any obvious visual support. So I think that would need to be touched upon. That's my comments. Okay, any other comments? Okay, sorry?
No, go ahead.
I personally think Gary.
Just a quick comment about the master bedroom windows on one and the decks. I'm a little concerned with the master bedroom windows on the unit number 1, particularly how they face the building next door. There's 3 windows there, and I would think that they should be a little higher in order that there isn't a problem with the neighbors for privacy.
There has to be an egress window, so that's an issue.
Could be.
So.
And another concern that we were talking about earlier, I believe last time we were talking about how the units are mirrored, and I think specifically it has to do with the entry, of how the entryways are mirrored to each other. And I think that they should have a little more, there should be some differentiation between these 2 units, and that they have some. It should be designed in a way that there's a distinct difference between the 2 structures, and a distinct entry difference, and not just a mirrored image of the other.
I had a question and comment, because when I was reading the minutes, Tom, you said that the balcony is only extended out 2 feet beyond, but it doesn't. It looks like that was one of the comments somebody made, was that the balconies stick out 3 feet. Were there different balconies?
I think the question is between how far they stick out from the building and how far they're beyond the setback, which is.
It's about.
I think what we meant was, I think the comment was relating to, and I wasn't here either, so correct me if I'm wrong, but it seemed like the comment was relating more to how far they stuck out from the building. And so,
okay. I guess I misunderstood that.
Okay, so they aren't 2 feet out from the building. They're still 3+ feet
right.
out.
Yeah, they're
Okay. So I feel the
3 foot
same way. I
plus,
think
yes.
they're too far out. That's my one comment. And Clay already commented on this, is that Tom, I think you just need to figure out which way you want to go, because you're showing corbels and then you're showing the wrought iron, and maybe it's not real clear what is going to be.
Well, it's a wrought iron railing, but they'll obviously need some good structural supports.
Yeah. And so my comment is just that I think they are a little too deep for wrought iron railings, for wrought iron, and that particular kind of support being under that garage door.
Can I ask a question? Is there any reason why the roof was not lowered in this area to maybe reduce the mass of the building? Here you have an open to living room below. It's identical to the space on the other side. The roofing is identical. And I'm wondering why is that? I mean,
Maybe for the ease of construction, I think the two-story element in the living area of that space would be attractive and provide for what is a pretty modest dwelling a nice relief with the visual, with the vertical feel in the living room.
You don't have a problem on square footage? Is that?
I don't understand the question.
You're just looking for the volume space.
Yes.
It's not it was not an issue where you had too much square footage and you had to.
Oh no. There was really no way to. I mean, you could get a bigger bedroom, but I think the configuration of the bedrooms and the opening into the area below seemed like something that was a good thing to have for the project. The space was not large enough to create another bedroom, and both bedrooms worked out, to have a good, configuration as it was. So.
I hate to drag this out, but based on what you said, it's too bad you can't get some use out of that when you come up. Not that we comment on interior spaces, but because you're asking for the volume, it's too bad you couldn't shift this closet and shift that entry down and get some openness inside this hallway looking into the living room area.
I studied that at length, and it required changes that weren't going to benefit either of the bedrooms.
Doesn't seem like it would be a detriment to the bedrooms, though, either. Really?
Well, you really have to.
Well, anyway.
Okay. All right. Comments and wrap up.
Yeah, I have one additional comment on the landscape, and that is, I guess, is this Unit 2 here on the north side? The corner planting on there between the driveway and the house is very minimal. It's just planted as society's garlic, so I think we'd like to see a plant that's a little more substantial in terms of the foundation planting there.
Okay.
That was it.
Mr. Chair, I'll make one last comment. I agree with what Clay was saying about the windows, and that there's an understanding that there's a playfulness, but the proportions are just still a little bit out of whack. Some things are too small, and some things are too large. And from my perspective, I don't think this project is ready for preliminary approval. And what I would recommend is that the applicant go and start doing some quarter-inch elevations and start, dissecting the building a little bit further, understanding he's moving down the right road in the sense that he has his staff hearing officer mod taken care of. But architecturally, there are some issues that need to be resolved, and it's more than just a minimal or minute kind of tweaking that needs to go on. It's just the next generation of thought needs to be put into the plans as well as into the architecture so that we can see that these issues have been resolved, including the impacts onto the neighbors next door, which means showing the windows and how they relate to your building, and perhaps you're going to have to slide one of your windows open if they align completely with another window. on the opposite side, but we don't have that information in front of us, so I don't feel comfortable giving it preliminary approval tonight.
Thanks.
Mr. Chair,
Yep.
I'll make
Motion?
a motion for a 2-week continuance. Is that okay? Okay, an indefinite continuance.
Back to full board.
Back to full board as quickly as possible. To carry forward the third item on the last motion, which is study the window proportions, locations, and styles. Carry forward number 5, which is the south elevation of Unit 1 needs more design character as it faces Old Coast Highway. Carry forward number 6, study the master and bedroom balconies as they appear to be cantilevered a bit too far from the building face. And I'll add to that, just they need to be detailed.
Proportion. That's good.
Yeah, appropriately. Carry forward item 8. Some board members prefer that the units have a less mirrored image and are concerned that some of the windows are too large at the stairways. And number 10, some board members are concerned that the roof level stair element may be adding unnecessary height. And number 13, verify and show the locations of the existing neighbors and the proximity of the windows and outdoor spaces. In addition to that, I think that under discussion we could add some landscaping comments, and that's my motion.
I think that to craft it to be part of the motion. If
it will, I think it will be. You can do it now if you want.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Get a second?
Is that good? No, I mean just before we.
Okay.
Clay seconds. Under discussion, Carol.
Okay, so the landscape items in the southeast portion of the property, relocate the proposed tree to be closer to driveway, eliminate lawn in that area, and provide plants of varying heights to break up the visual of the garage door. That's all one. And then number 2, substitute the society garlic for a more sustainable foundation plant. And under, kind of under discussion, can I add, provide flagstone in Parkway to create street to stair connection? And the last one is, so that would be 4, is provide planting throughout the parkway. Per parkway code of no higher than 8 inches. That's code.
That's okay with the maker of the motion? Okay. So we have a first and second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Against? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And that concludes our meeting for the evening. Good night, Santa Barbara. Thank you.